that, which is working.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second?
Okay, I have a nomination and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? 5-0 vote. I'll pass the meeting to Holly.
Thanks. So we'll move on to vice chair. We'll do the same process, so I'll call for nominations for vice chair. I was gonna start by nominating Kate Stoll, because the process has been working, so I'd like to nominate Kate Stoll for vice chair. Is there a second? Second, Amy. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor? 5-0. Okay, next is, I believe, secretary. So same process. Is there anyone who'd like to nominate someone or volunteer to be secretary? Sometimes in the past, we've asked, the secretary does not take minutes during the meetings. We have a, Dawn Millen, we have a board secretary. It's just for the non-public meetings that we need, a secretary. So we usually, the tradition has been that the newest member of the board. So I'd like to nominate Amy Kellner to be secretary.
I will second that.
Seconded by Kate. All in favor? 6-0. Okay. So now that that's taken care of, I would like us to go around and do some introductions of the students. If you don't feel comfortable, you don't have to say your whole name, but you are on camera, so just so you know. I'm going to start with you. Actually, Gina, why don't you do a little introduction, Mr. Hess, to the public, and then we'll go around.
Well, you want me to start?
Yeah, yeah.
Because we're not really at an end.
I
and
know,
we
I'm going to
that.
just go this way.
Okay, so Gina Bergskog, Superintendent-elect, and to my right we have Jacob Hess, who I will be nominating for Principal of Hollis Brookline High School, effective July 1st.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
guys.
Looking forward to that.
Linda Sherwood, Director of Business Operations.
Amy Kellner, I'm a new school board member.
Cindy Van Conant, School Board Member.
Tom Solon, school board member.
Let me go you.
William Van Eyder, I'm a junior at the high school.
Nice to meet you.
Ashley Disco, Student Body Vice President. Abby Ford, Sophomore Representative.
Margaret Noble, Student Body President.
I'm Kate Berrigan, I'm a Senior Representative.
Tim Razone, high school principal.
Short timer.
Short time. Short time.
Let me leave together.
Patrick West, middle school principal.
Beth Williams, school board.
Kate Stoll, School Board.
And Holly Durlow Babcock, School Board.
Andy Corey, Superintendent.
Short timer.
Very.
So, great, thank you all for doing that. So I'd also like to do 4 committee assignments, although most of the rest of our committee appointments will be done at the May meeting, sorry. I'd like to at least try and get a few of the more important roles done. So I'd like to appoint, I'm gonna do them all at once, I think, but I'm gonna ask, I need 2 people to sign manifest, Linda, or 1?
You need 2 plus an alternate.
2 plus an alternate, so I need 2 people to sign manifest, so I need volunteers for that. We need at least 2 people on policy, we need a BudCom rep, and we need an SAU BudCom rep. I'd like to come out of tonight's meeting with those positions appointed. So, if there's anyone, I'd like to start with BudCom rep. Tom Solon's been doing it. Tom, is that something you'd be willing to continue, unless there's somebody?
Nobody else wants it.
Yeah, I sent an email out and I didn't get a response that anybody else was looking for it, so, I'd love to appoint you. Are you okay with it, Tom?
Yep.
Okay. And then Amy, you sent an email to me about policy. I'd like to stay on policy. Rob has asked to not be on policy anymore, so the 2 of us will be on that. So Amy for policy, Holly for policy, Tom for BudCom rep. Kate, you've been signing manifests?
Yeah, I'm fine with continuing
Can you
that.
still do that?
Sure.
I need one other person. Who?
It was,
And Cindy?
Rob has been as well.
Okay.
So.
Is there anyone who'd like to take that job on, or is it good to stick with the same? You're good. And then SAU BudCom, you've been doing that, right, Beth?
I was,
Is that something you can continue to do?
depending on when meetings are, but
Okay.
yeah. as
So
long
we'll,
as-
we'll appoint you at this point,
Yep,
and if
that's
there's a
fine.
problem, can you send an email and we'll try to find someone else? So, just so we're clear for the business office, manifests are Kate, Cindy, and Rob.
And which one is the alternate?
Rob, let's call him
Okay.
the alternate. Right, Cindy, you're okay to do it as well, okay. Policy is Amy and Holly, BudCom is Tom Solon, and then SAU BudCom is Beth. So, I'd like a motion to approve those appointments.
So moved.
Moved by Beth.
Second.
Second by Kate. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? 6-0, motion carries. All right. So I love that we have all these students here. I know you're here for the presentation, but our agenda calls for us to go into a non-public, which is going to be at least a half an hour. So unfortunately, you're gonna have to sit and wait. I assume you're all coming to every meeting after this presentation, like, we're just gonna have you all the time, because we love that, so.
Maybe. But there's candy.
Did the candy make it to you?
Not yet.
Stressed about that, 'cause there's, she always brought the candy. I saw it.
Well,
It was very.
Yes, I did.
Holly
bring
picked
the
it
Did
up.
the candy get
Nice.
to the
That's
kids?
It's coming.
Coming.
Okay, pass the candy around. Okay, so, that being said, I need a motion to go into
Clearly, I'm gonna have to
non,
do
hold on, I can't find it.
Before the kids get it.
Right, am I moving on to?
Yeah, non-public.
Okay.
Yeah.
So okay, I need a motion that the board by roll call go into non-public session pursuant to RSA 91-A:3 to, A, the dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee. That's it. So moved by Cindy.
Second.
Second by Kate. I need a roll call vote on this, so all in
Tom,
favor.
aye.
Cindy, aye.
Amy, I.
Holly, aye.
Kate, aye.
Beth, I.
That's aye. We are now in non-public at
6:07?
6:07 PM. All right.
We're heading over to
Dear Tim, please accept my letter of resignation effective on the date I am released from my contract in SAU 41 from Hollisbrook Glen High School. I've been afforded a position in another district and would like to start with them as soon as possible. It deeply saddens me to leave my students and staff in these conditions. The relationships I've established through case management, co-teaching, mentorship, and coaching soccer are ones I will always cherish. Leaving a community I've made deep connections in was not one that I ever anticipated. I wish you and the district all the best in your future endeavors. That comes from Allison Wittig, with an effective date of February 21st, 2025, case manager at the high school.
And that was a,
Wittig?
that was a resignation, right?
Resignation, Allison Wittig.
Okay, so I need a motion to accept the resignation of Allison Wittig as case manager at the high school with an effective date of
February 21st.
February 21st,
2025.
2025.
So moved.
Moved by Rob. Need a second?
Second.
Second by Beth. Is there any discussion? Did you have a question? Yes.
I have discussion.
Sure.
We have had conversations in the past about essentially what amounts to breaking contracts, and that maybe we can't actually stop it, but we don't have to approve it. And there is language in the contract about issues related to, did we have that about, that we have, there is language that talks about obligation fulfilling the contracts with potential legal recourse. So I want to remind this group that the fact that it happened doesn't mean it has to be approved.
Right. We never have to vote. Yes.
And so towards that end, my question is, was this a planned, negotiated, desired departure?
It was done by mutual agreement.
Okay, that helps.
And have we successfully
Yes.
filled the vacancy?
Yes, we have.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so any other comments? All those in favor? 7-0, motion carries.
Thank you. All right. Dear Andrew Corey, I hereby resign from my position as ELL educator at Hollis Brookline School District beginning at the end of the school year in 2024-2025. Though I enjoyed my position here, it is a very far commute for me. Thank you for the opportunity to teach here in SAU 41. Sincerely, Virginia Henninghausen.
Virginia,
HENNIGHAUSEN.
and she was an ELL teacher.
Correct.
So I need a motion to accept the resignation of Virginia Henninghausen
So
as the ELL teacher at Hollis Brookline High School with an effective date of June 30th,
Yep.
2025.
so moved.
Second.
Moved by Beth, seconded by Rob. Any discussion? All those in favor? 7-0, motion carries.
Thank you. Dear Mr. Corey, please accept this as my letter of resignation from my position of special education teacher at Hollis Brookline Middle School. My last day will be at the end of the 2025 school year. My students have given me great pleasure through my tenure with the school district. Sincerely yours, Susan Doyle.
Okay. I need a motion to accept the resignation of Susan Doyle as a special educator at the Hollis Brookline Middle School with an effective date of June 30th, 2025.
So moved.
Moved by Kate, seconded by Beth. Sorry.
Gotta be faster.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? 7-0, motion carries.
Thank you. To Andrew Corey and Gina Bergskog, I am writing to formally resign from my position as a science teacher at Hollis Brookline High School, effective June 30th, 2025. This decision comes after careful consideration of my family's needs and our anticipated move to another part of the state. Working alongside my colleagues in the science department has been a positive experience that will be difficult to emulate. I am especially grateful for the mentorship provided by Rod Clark, our department chair, as well as the support I've received from fellow teachers Trudy Thompson and Jennifer Shreves. It has been a blessing to work with such wonderful people over the past 8 years. Thank you for the opportunity to grow as an educator at HBHS. I wish the district continued success in the future. Respectfully, Camille Carson.
Okay. All right. I need need a motion to accept the resignation of Camille Carson as a science teacher at the Hollis Brookline High School with the effective date of June 30th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Beth. Nope, moved by Kate, seconded by Beth. Is there any conversation? All right, all those in favor? 7-0.
Thank you. Dear leadership and Hollis Brookline School Board members, with deepest gratitude for my 24 years here, so emotional. I need to depart from a place I still love working at and a community I still feel honored to be a part of. Family and personal needs are such that I need to work part-time, not full-time in the coming year. So this is my official letter of retirement. Thank you for the opportunity to teach the sons and daughters of these two towns. It has meant so much to be part of the journey from COVID-19 recovery to this year, where I see joy in our halls and in our students. Additionally, being part of Advisory's launch has been one of the most important things that I've done in 37 years of teaching. I'm proud to have been such a remarkable part of such a remarkable school district. Thank you for all that you do and all that you've done to make the town schools and the places they are growing and learning. Sincerely, Lynn Illingworth.
Okay.
What was the last name?
Illingworth,
Ms. I.
Miss I. I need a motion to accept the retirement of Lynn Illingworth she's an English teacher at the high school with an effective date of June 30th, 2025.
So moved.
Moved by Beth.
Second.
Second by Kate. I guess we can say with regret, clearly.
Just wait.
All those in favor? 7-0.
This is a tough one. Dear Andy, it is with mixed emotions that I inform you of my resignation from my current position as principal of Hollis Brookline High School, effective at the conclusion of my current contract in the school year on June 30th, 2025. I've been offered and accepted a position to become the next principal of Goffstown High School. As you know, Goffstown is my hometown's high school, and becoming principal there is a unique and exciting opportunity for me and my family. I'm eternally grateful for the opportunities I've been given here in SAU 41 over the course of my 23-year career. I would like to express my gratitude to you and Gina for your continued support, guidance, and friendship throughout my career here at HB. I would also like to express my sincere appreciation to Holly, Tom, Beth, Cindy, Rob, Krista, and Kate, as well as the previous co-op school board members who have supported my growth as an educator and an administrator throughout my time here in SAU 41. Hollis Brookline School District, more specifically Hollis Brookline High School, is a special place that will always be part of who I am as a person and a professional. The countless relationships I have formed over the years with colleagues, parents, community members, and most importantly, students, is something that I will cherish forever. Thank you for everything. Sincerely, Tim Gerzone.
Okay, so I need a motion to accept the resignation of Tim Grisome from Hollis Brookline High School as principal, effective June 30th, 2025.
So moved.
Moved by Beth,
Second.
second by Kate. So with regret, but with best wishes.
Can we vote against
Good luck.
this one?
All those in favor?
Do we have a
7-0.
So that leads us to our nominations.
Go. It's like two sides.
Yeah. All right. So as you can see, we have Jacob Hess here. I'd like to nominate him for the role of principal of Hollis Brookline High School. He comes to us as principal of Campbell High School for the past 3 years. And prior to that, he was principal of White Mountain Regional High School. I'd like to nominate him. What's that?
Hess.
Hess.
H-E-S-S.
Like the Hess trucks.
It's true.
And I'm sure you've never heard this before.
We have all of them.
I do like them. With a salary of $135,000.
Okay, and that begins July
1st.
2025.
Mhm.
Okay, so I need a motion to accept the nomination of Jacob Hess as the Hollis Brookline High School principal at a salary of $135,000 per year, beginning on July 1st, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Kate, seconded by Beth. Happy to have you. All those in favor?
Discussion?
Questions, sorry, discussion, questions, go ahead.
What is currently budgeted for that position right now?
135?
Is that because of where we were?
That was what was in the budget, yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? All those in favor? 7-0. Welcome to the circus.
Let's keep going. Okay. So I have a nomination. Trisha Shea, I'd like to nominate for case manager for Hollis Brookline High School. She has a bachelor's in biology from Colby Sawyer and a master's in special ed from Southern New Hampshire University. She's master's step 10
I'm listening.
for a salary of $72,832.
And what did you say the position was?
Case manager.
Okay.
She has come on board in March to fill a vacancy that was created.
Okay, so March 1st?
This is next year's nomination, so she's like a long-term sub this year.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's still July.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, so I need a motion to accept the superintendent-elect's nomination of Trissa Shea
Mhm.
for the position of case manager at Master's Step 10 at the high school with a salary of $72,830.
So moved.
Moved by Beth,
Second.
second by Kate. Any questions? All those in favor? 7-0. Motion carries. Any more?
Okay, yes.
Like how many more?
4 more.
Okay, great.
All right, so we have Lillian Mango, nominating her for position of English teacher at Hollis Brookline Middle School. She has a bachelor's in English from St. Anselm's College. So we would like to put her bachelor's step 3 for a salary of $55,733.
Can you just hand it to me and then I can, so I need a motion to accept the nomination of Lillian Mango as an English teacher at Hollis Brookline Middle School beginning in beginning in 2025 with a bachelor's step 3 at $55,733.
So moved.
Moved by Beth, well, moved by Kate, seconded by Beth. Any questions? All those in favor? 7-0.
Thank you. Okay, we have a nomination for Katie Surratt, social studies teacher for Hollis Brookline Middle School. Bachelor's in history from UNH and a master's in education from UNH. She will be placed on master's step 9 with a salary of $71,055.
Okay, so we need I need a motion to accept the nomination of Katie Surratt as a social studies teacher at Hollis Brookline Middle School, master's step 9, $71,055.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Kate, seconded by Beth. All those in favor? If you have questions, just stop me, okay? 7-0, motion carries.
Okay, we have a nomination for Alyssa Demian for case manager, Hollis Brookline Middle School. She comes to us with a bachelor's in child and family studies at UNH. We would like to put her on bachelor's plus 30, step 17, for a salary of $83,530.
Great, so I need a motion to accept the nomination of Alyssa Demian, as a case manager at HBMS. She'll be on bachelor's plus 30, step 17, with a salary of $80,530.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Kate, seconded by Beth. Any questions? All those in favor? 7-0.
And finally,
Phew.
we have a nomination of Lynn Illingworth for a part-time position, .6 English, at Hollis Brookline High School, bachelor's in English and theater, and a master's in English education, both from UNH. We would place her master's plus 30, step 20, for a prorated salary of $59,802.
Okay, so I need a nomination for a part-time position for Lynn Illingworth, .6 English at Hollis Brookline High School, master's plus 30, which is step 20, prorated at $59,802.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Kate, second by Beth. All those in, questions? Questions?
Oh, go ahead. He can go first.
Go ahead.
Nope, you first.
Why, do you know why it was done this way? Is
Yes.
it because she wanted to do the formal retirement part?
Yes, in order to formally retire, you need the month of separation. So legally, we have to demonstrate that she resigned or retired, and then she can begin employment greater than 30 days later.
So what will be her start date?
The start of school.
So the contract does not start July 1st? then?
No, it's like August 25th, or I think it's actually August 25th.
Is that true of all of our teacher contracts?
Yes.
I thought they were 12-month contracts.
Yeah, the separation piece is just the 28 days. So
Right, but-
I will finish on June 30th. The school year will end 28 days later. I would be eligible. It's the same for any employee. School year ends 28 days later, you're then eligible. Because you could teach ESY, you could do.
I understand that, but don't our normal teaching contracts start July 1st?
Teaching contracts are issued, the new compensation begins on July 1st, but the employment continues.
I guess my point is, will her contract be different than a traditional teacher's contract to get the separation? Because
No.
when we were looking at all these things, we were looking real heavily at, when we do contract negotiations, we look real heavily at the dates, and the indicating dates. And although the school year doesn't start, I thought it was a 12-month contract.
You're correct. I mean, people can choose to take their salary year-round, they can take balloon checks, there are a number of things. So she's looking for the formal retirement, which is the last day of the school year. 28 days later, she becomes eligible to return on a part-time basis.
I was just going to add, but actually, so you can get 12 months of pay, but it actually starts in August. So there's a separation. She can't be in the building. She doesn't get paid. No teachers get paid. Their pay starts in August, and then they get a balloon check that covers them for those
I know
final 2
about
months.
the pay, but I'm talking about the actual contracts that they sign. Their contracts do not start until sometime in August?
So what if we make an amendment, if we make sure that we have in this,
I'm just
in
trying
this-
to find
what-
out
what
if
if we
she's
say
getting
make
an,
sure-
if her contract is going to be worded differently than a traditional teaching contract.
Well, the .6 contracts or the part-time contracts are always slightly different.
In terms of the.
Because there's no longer New Hampshire retirement in
In
it.
terms of the term of the contract, that's explicitly what I'm asking about.
She will get a .6 with the term beginning in August 25th and going to June 30th of 2025.
but if you want to, we can put that in the motion, that she starts on August 25th, and that
I
way
don't
it's
care
in
about,
the.
I'm just trying to
Yeah, I
understand
gotcha.
if this is a different
Yeah.
contract, because this is the first time I've dealt with the flip right then and there.
All right.
I will also say that it is a 1.0 position. Due to our smaller junior class that we've seen, we can offer the .6 and we're fine, but there is no guarantee year to year that this can continue, and she's well aware of that.
Are there any other questions?
No, mine was so much lighter hearted, just you could have led with that, because I was sitting here being sad.
Pulling at the
It's an emotional
heartstrings.
roller coaster of the board meeting.
Okay, all those in favor? 6, Tom, are you 7? 7, okay, 7-0. Motion carries. Okay, moving on, we need to do some minutes. I feel bad for all these kids here, okay. I need, okay, we already did the motion, we did that. I'm sorry, I'm moving on. Oh, here we go. I need okay, I've got minutes from, sorry, I got minutes from what meeting?
So many meetings.
Oh, January 15th, okay, sorry. So we have minutes from January 15th, 2025 with the following amendments. Page 3, line 37, replace 2 with this. Page 4, line 5, replace the period with a comma following asked. Page 7, line 24, insert have before taken place. Page 7, line 46, replace reflation with inflation. And page 11, line 38, replace second reading with first reading. I need a motion to accept as amended.
So moved.
Moved by Beth, and I need a second.
Second.
Second by Kate. Okay, so are there any questions or any other amendments? All those in favor of the minutes from, I've got 5. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Cindy and Amy are abstaining, so we've got a 5-0-2 vote. Motion carries. Also, there were there was a public hearing, so I need a motion to accept as presented the January 5th public hearing minutes.
So moved.
Moved by Beth, and I need a second.
Second.
Second by Kate. Any questions? All those in favor? 5 and opposed and abstentions. So 5-0-2. And then I have also a special meeting. That was the special meeting from January 30th. So we have some minutes from that, and we have page 1, line 6, replace the January 30th, 2025 special meeting with a special meeting. Page 2, line 30, close the parentheses, and it's like a punctuation thing. And page 6, line 27, replace 2024 with 2014. I need a motion to accept as amended.
So moved.
Second.
So moved by
What was
Beth.
the topic of that meeting?
I think that was the apportionment meeting. And then a motion by Beth, and then Kate is the second. All those in favor? I have 6 and abstention. 601. Then we also had a public hearing on the petition warrants on February 3rd. I need a motion to accept as presented.
So moved.
Moved by Beth and second
Second.
by Kate. And all those in favor?
Is that the Brookline meeting?
I think
I think that was the.
that was our
That was
meeting.
here.
It was our meeting, sorry. It was our
No,
meeting.
but was that the one that took place in
It-
Brookline?
No, it took
No,
place
it was
here.
here.
The February 3rd was here.
Okay.
And then February,
We had a non-public.
yeah, we have a lot more. Okay. Also on February 3rd, we had a non-public, so I need a motion to accept the non-public meeting minutes as presented.
So moved.
Moved by Kate,
Second.
second by Beth. All those in favor? That's 6, all of those abstentions. Amy's, so it's 6-1, okay. And then we also had a joint, are these minutes? Do we have joint minutes from these? I don't remember seeing all these, okay. Joint Hollis Brookline Cooperative School Board Cooperative Budget Committee meeting on February 3rd, page 14, there's an amendment, page 14, line 26, replace "and" with "a." So I need a motion to accept as amended.
So moved.
Moved by Beth,
Second.
second by Kate. All those in favor? Okay, and then we had public hearing petition warrant articles on February 3rd again. That's
Yes,
confusing.
that's the same meeting, but we went to the petition articles from the regular board articles.
Okay.
Remember, we closed one.
Oh,
closed
yeah,
the other.
I remember being here.
For a really long time.
So we have page 2, line 33, replace 25,000 with 27,000. That was the amendment. I need a motion to accept as amended.
So moved.
Moved by Beth.
Second.
by Kate. All those in favor? 6 and 1 abstention. We have an abstention. Thank you. And then public hearing on the bond, which was also February 3rd. So I need a motion to accept as presented.
So moved.
Moved by Beth, second by Kate. Okay, all those in favor? 6 and an abstention. We've got Amy. 601. Those are carried. I believe that's. And then the annual meeting. See those minutes. Okay. Then we have the minutes from the annual meeting. I need a motion to accept as presented.
So moved.
Moved by Beth,
Second.
second by Kate. All those in
When did
favor?
those come out?
What?
When did those come out?
I don't know, but
Dawn had them out? Because they come out from Diane.
so the minutes, I think we need to table this. Can we table this one? Let's pull this one because I don't think I've seen these either. Usually I see them in the annual report the next year, so I'll have Dawn send them to us. If Dawn has them, yeah, okay. All right, so we're not gonna do that one. So we're pulling that motion. Somebody pull their motion. Great, okay. All right, we are getting there.
They're never coming back.
I know, I think we're gonna move them up, I think.
That's what I was gonna do.
Okay, we'll move them up, okay. I also might ask to move one other thing up too. All right, so at this point, I'm going to open the floor for public input. That doesn't mean that the floor will stay open for 30 minutes. If there's someone here who'd like to speak, please come to the mic, say your name, your address, and, the reason for your here. Drew, if you want to talk about okay, go ahead. Never mind. I'll let you speak, Drew. Sorry.
Thank you, Drew Mason, Baxter Road, Hollis, and moderator of the district. I just want to thank the school board, the SAU administration, SAU staff, high school, middle school administration, staff, budget committee, everybody who helped make this last meeting season a success. It takes a lot of people. It's a complicated tapestry we weave, and when you throw in the town on top of that, it gets even more, and an election, it gets even more complicated. But I really do appreciate the help that I have received and that my team has received. I've just been reelected for another 3-year term, and I'm happy to serve for 3 years. But at the end of that term, I'm done. I will not be running for reelection in '28.
There's always a write-in.
So you have some time to find a replacement, and I'm happy to work with whoever steps up. But I think I will be done by then.
Thank you so much, Drew, and we thank you for all of your hard work, for all of us.
Absolutely.
It definitely, it doesn't go smoothly without you standing there, so thank you.
Thank you.
Later on in the evening, we have debriefing of annual meeting. I'm hoping to move that a little bit because I know you have some things that you want to talk about, and that's fine. Even if public input's closed, we're gonna still accept our current moderator's input. Okay, so public input's open. It will close at
7:55.
well, let's just say 8 o'clock. We'll just give people till 8 o'clock. Well, it'll close at 8 o'clock. We'll give them at least a little bit more than half an hour. So if the board is okay with a couple of agenda adjustments, I would love to move the student presentation to now, before anything else. Does that work for everyone? Is there any argument, or not argument, is there any opposition to that idea? Okay, so this item is under our discussion portion of the agenda, and it is the Hollis Brookline High School Student Council policy proposal, and they have some CAV block reform that they'd like to talk about. So I am turning the floor over to you guys if you'd like to,
I feel as though we should stand.
And thank you for your patience.
Good evening.
You actually need to be on it. We do need mics for you, so.
We can grab the one from the podium.
Yeah, let's get the podium and just kind of.
Here.
Yeah, why don't you just move the podium over? That's great. Okay, that's good.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thanks for letting us in your very busy schedule we see. I'm Kate Berrigan, the senior at Hollis Brookline, and as part of Student Council and us members, we like to improve the school as much as we can. That's our main goal every single year. And what's come to our attention this year and some concerns from students have been the changes in CAV block, and it's been enough for us to look into it further, put this together. It's unrealistic to ask for immediate action, but we wanted to tell you what our perspective is and our thoughts so that maybe you can get thinking towards it as well. All right, so for CAV block for us, this is what we see it as. It's the flex period for students. It runs 3 days a week, and it allows them to self-regulate their time as they develop as young adults. Ideal experiences include one-on-one time with teachers, extended advisory activities, meeting with class officers, improving connections with students and staff, and it's the best time to make up quizzes and tests, work on group projects, independently complete work, and so much more. So, starting with some of the issues that we've seen. The overview of the structure is that many teachers no longer have CAV blocks. Instead, they've been assigned to study halls, and we've seen this affect some student-teacher relationships. Students often cannot meet with the teachers that they need or want to see during school hours. Instead, to meet with teachers, they have to do it before or after school or during prep periods. In comparison, this is 15 minutes rather than the 44-minute CAV block period, and students really need that extended, uninterrupted time to confer with their teachers. Continuing with the usage, there are less available CAV block spaces for students to go that less teachers have those CAV blocks. And some teachers are actually faced with overcrowding. And the CAV block signups don't accurately, measure use of space. Some kids don't even sign up. But for example, 10 kids in an English CAV versus 20 in a math don't necessarily equate to a math is more important as, English and writing, reading, and revising papers that might take more time rather than a math learning lab. And with the assignments, the study halls, as we've noticed, and the CAV blocks are unevenly distributed across the STEM and humanities teachers. There's still the learning labs for maths, but not the English and social studies they've been lacking. Some teachers assigned to the study halls are the only teachers of their subjects. Examples include AP Gov, Latin, Economics, Engineering. Speaking from personal experience, as well as Maggie Noble over here, we take AP Gov. We don't have a CAV block, and when we're doing We the People hearings, one state's in Concord, and the rest of the group is actually in DC right now. We didn't have the CAV block time. We had a little grid on the whiteboard for lunch A, B, and C. We were taking our time during lunch, as well as our teacher taking their time during lunch, as well as before and after school to meet with and try to discuss how we can further improve our papers and whatnot, and not having that CAV block time was a little bit of an inconvenience for us. Some teachers cannot help in the same manners, and this goes for subjects, whereas math and science are very formulaic and objective. Humanities courses are subjective to the teacher and the way that they grade papers, the way that they like to see writing, etc. And what we do recognize, though, is the new system with the teachers in charge of study halls is that it can allow for a slightly more academic environment, and it did intend to foster more consistent student-teacher connections is what we have seen and what we think it's there for. Except we notice that students are not necessarily making meaningful connections with their teachers in study halls. Many leave to go to the library. Some students do not even have, or some studies don't have enough room for all students to actually stay. They are forced to go to the library. There aren't enough seats. And study halls in the cafeteria, we still have those, but it's not necessarily the same academic environment as would be a classroom. So the support from study teachers does not necessarily equate to a support from a specific subject teacher.
All right, so I'm going to present our data collection. So I'm going to move this. So us at Student Council, the members divided themselves into 5 groups. We had the sophomores to seniors, the freshmen, the AP and honors students, the humanities teachers, and STEM teachers. We then, in each of our groups, collaborated to create a template of questions that we were going to ask to these targeted groups. Each group member then conducted informal, anonymous conversations with around 4 people of interest, collecting both qualitative and quantitative data. After conducting all these conversations, we compiled both of the data to highlight the effects numerically and through personas respectively. So for our AP and honors students, we interviewed 18. And 4.4 was the number of AP or honors classes that each of the students was taking on average. 69% of the students say that they had been strongly affected by changes to CAB block this year. 83% of the students say their CAB block experience has been very much or somewhat different than previous years. And only 60% of them had a good efficiency rating for CAB block this year. For our STEM and humanities teacher, 8% of STEM teachers disagree with the new CAB block structure, but 86% of humanities teachers disagree with the structure. 55% of STEM teachers say that students have been negatively affected by CAB block changes, and 63% of humanities teachers say the same. 14% of STEM teachers do not have CAB block, but 45% of humanities teachers don't have CAB block.
So I'm going to be presenting just general information about what the different groups of interest said about CAB block. So first we have the sophomore, junior, and senior classes, and so these were students who have had prior experience with the old CAB block system in addition to the new CAB block system this year. And one of the biggest things that we heard was that they were finding it harder to make up assessments such as quizzes and tests inside school hours with teachers that didn't have CAB blocks. As previously mentioned, there is a small amount of time before and after school to meet with teachers. However, that doesn't provide as much opportunity for students to make up larger assessments like quizzes or tests as CAB block does. Additionally, students found that they were having trouble getting access to certain teachers and getting help from those teachers, specifically for less general or niche classes that were such as AP and honors classes or specific elective courses. and it was harder for them to receive help because they couldn't go to another teacher on the topic because only one or a select number of teachers was familiar with the course content that they needed help with. Conversely, the freshmen only have experience with the current CAD block system, and overall they seem to like the idea and experience of being able to get help from teachers during CAD block. However, they did express a big concern with not being able to access teachers that they need help from during CAD block due to limited space and overcrowded areas, because there aren't as many spaces open as previous years. And then a lot of AP and honors classes are only taught by one teacher, so only one teacher is familiar with the course content for that class. And so students, and in some cases, the teacher who teaches that class doesn't have a CAD block, such as I think Kate mentioned, the AP government teacher does not have a CAD block. And so students are having trouble finding time to clarify expectations or get help on assignments, and the teachers are potentially having to, go outside of, take their prep time or in what Kate said, their lunch period to help students with that. And then looking at the teacher perspective of this, we talked to humanities teachers, and many of them felt that they were not able to help students as well as they were this year as they had been last year. And despite trying to help students who weren't in their class but were still seeking help on a certain subject, they felt they weren't able to adequately help as much as they would have been with a student in their class because they weren't as familiar with the specific coursework that the student was asking about. Humanities teachers were strong proponents of every teacher having a CAD block, and they also felt that this would help with the overcrowded situation inside the CAD block spaces. And then the STEM teachers, though disproportionately affected by the number of studies given to them, did still feel that the new CAD block system sometimes didn't allow for students to go to a CAD block that was most efficient for them to get work done.
Alright, now that we've addressed some of our concerns, we wanted to present some solutions. Okay, so our ideal solution is to go back to the previous structure of CAD block, where all teachers are available during CAD block. So in the math department, this means that teachers are available during learning labs, and in humanities, each teacher would have their own dedicated CAD block. However, even though this is our ideal solution, we do see a downside to this, as teachers would not be available to cover study halls. Our backup solution would involve a more equal distribution of CAD block teachers across departments. So a certain percentage of teachers in each department would cover study halls, and the other half would have CAD blocks. This allows for more teachers in each department to have CAD blocks. However, a downside to this one is still not all teachers are available during CAD block. So in a perfect world, we would like to have both, because we do see value in having teachers covering study halls and having CAD blocks, because we do see the need for students to meet with all their teachers if they need help with them. And we also see that teachers covering study halls provides a more academic setting and also introduces teachers to students that they may not have met before. So overall, we do think that our ideal solution is best for both students and teachers, because the benefits do outweigh the challenges, but we do realize that with this and implementing it, it does come with both monetary and logistical impacts. One being we would need to find proper coverage for study halls. Two would be we need to find appropriate locations to host study halls. And three, we would need to allocate funds for those who cover study halls.
Thank you. Why don't you guys sit down again so we can talk? You don't have to stand there. Thank you for a very thorough presentation. I think that Mr. Hess is getting a little picture of our students. So, this is a great opportunity for the board to ask some questions, if anybody has any questions.
what is your top two elements of the biggest problems? I mean, you listed a lot, and it is great information, but from your perspective, what is the top 2 or 3 big issues?
I could narrow it down to honestly just one, being the fact that students do not have access to the teachers that they want and need to see
Okay.
during Cav block flex time.
Okay.
Can you elaborate a little bit on why there is this need? Just historically, Cav block was viewed to be dealing with the exception rather than the rule, and by that I mean that it was implemented for what was called RTI, which in the early days was response intervention, and then it became response to instruction, and it was viewed as helping the student who didn't get what they need out of the normal classroom environment, as opposed to it being an annex to the regular classroom environment. So the thought was that the majority of students would not on a regular basis need to access Cav block as a routine element of completing the work of class. But from what you're describing, it sounds like it had turned into the extension, almost like a anticipated lab would be, to go with the lecture part of the class. I get the sense that many students rely on Cav block time routinely. Is that an accurate impression or not?
I wouldn't want to speak for the entire student body, but seeing as the way that you put it and the original intention of Cav block, I would say that it actually, has evolved. And also going into maybe even attendance levels, how they were not the same as probably when Cav block was first instituted. It really is a good time to make up work and to get help, and seeing the teachers that you specifically have for classes to maybe have some one-on-one connection with them and make up that time that you missed, or further enhance, the studies that you are currently in and the classes that you currently are taking.
And one of honestly, the main reason that I think a lot of kids use this is, I think a lot of, at least us 5, we have a lot of extracurricular activities, and I'm getting home at like 9 o'clock at night, and I don't really have time to do a lot of this homework, and we're in hard classes. So Cav block is that time to get your homework done and stuff. And I'm struggling in calculus, honestly, as we talked about when you guys were in your private meeting. And I go into the math Cav block, and I get that one-on-one time with one of the teachers in there who just helps me understand calculus more, and that's really what the main reason is. But then I have my AP Gov essay, and I can't really get help on that because our AP Gov teacher doesn't have that Cav block.
How much actual time do you get from the teacher when you go to Cav block? Because you're saying, you got 45 minutes, but I'm sure there are a bunch of students and you're competing for time. So how much individual time do you get to spend with the teacher, as opposed to it being just a place to do your work?
Well, it would honestly depend on the day, depend on what students need what. But as we were staying, in our presentation, that sometimes it varies, and there's a difference between 10 students in an English Cav versus 20 students in a math Cav, where everybody can learn the same formula at the same time, versus in English, where everybody has a different essay and everybody has to work on something else. And that's where it comes into play, where you have to sign up for Cav block. That's why we have specific spots open. If everything is full, then that means that you maybe can't necessarily go to that specific teacher. And that is set for us. Teachers do have, a specific amount of chairs that they can take, and that's how much of time that they can give out to each student. So there isn't necessarily a time block that every student would be entitled to with a teacher, but it's flexible, and there is kind of a science to it and what kids are allowed to do.
So I just want to follow up with something. So in the ideal solution, you guys put math department in your ideal solution, math department continues to have learning labs. So I just want to have an understanding of how things have changed. My kids graduated in 2016, 2019, and 2023. So all three of my kids have experienced the high school with CAP blocks. So when you say math department continues to have learning labs in this solution, do they not have learning labs right now?
No, math department honestly hasn't really changed at all.
So math
So the
department's the
STEM,
same.
yes, so STEM
same.
and is really the same.
Okay, so is there not a writing lab that like one or two English teachers or English/social studies teachers are manning as a CAV block? Is there a writing lab? Is that a structure that's been put in place, or no?
No, it's
So-
definitely not the same system.
Because I definitely saw in your presentation the idea that, you know, when you, and I used to be an English teacher, like when you go to see an English teacher, you kind of want to work with that teacher because writing is subjective and you want the feedback from that person. But that's true, but it's also helpful if that English teacher isn't available because they're in a study hall. Another teacher's perspective can also, you know, help you. I mean, it can give you the help and the support that you might need. So I just am trying to clarify what's happened in humanities that like there's not an opportunity for that kind of support. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
I thought it might be a Tim question.
Sure. So the structure in English and in social studies is that not for all, but for the large majority of our courses, we have a CAV block space available. It might not be your English 9
Right. Teacher.
teacher, but there's an English 9 room.
Okay.
There's an English 9 or English 10 room. There is a writing room, but those are course specific, not teacher specific.
But the math department doesn't manage it, it's teacher specific either. At least in my experience, it was like a pre-calc room.
That's correct,
A trig
yeah.
room,
And
not
I
trig,
think this-
algebra 2 room. Like, that's how math has always done it, and they've always kind of rotated in.
Yep.
And so,
And I think
the point is that English is different.
yeah, I think the presentation, and I think you captured it where, you know, the humanities work is more subjective, and the ideal situation includes working with your individual teacher. And in maybe math or science, it's maybe more, I think formulaic was the term you used. Yeah. And that might be accomplished with a different math or science teacher more easily.
Okay, another question for you. Since you're all here, how many of you have a full year of study hall?
Does senior options count?
The senior options doesn't count. But senior options you leave, so you're
it
not in the
counts.
building, so it
It counts.
So, okay, senior options count. So that's another question I have is, I mean, are study halls really useful?
Personally, I find my study hall useful. I use that with the teachers that either have an open time or have classes where they know they might not be doing much that time and they could help me out if I needed it during that time. But I know so many people around me that aren't able to get that study. Like next year, personally, I'll be taking a CTE course that takes up multiple periods of my day. I do not have time in my schedule to
study hall.
get a study hall like that. And I'm also someone who like currently right now am not in like the special electives that would like get me towards what I want to know, but a lot of people are, and once again they can't get into those studies and they don't have the extra time and really need that CAV block time.
And then one other question. Never mind, I can't. Oh, no. So how many of you have had a cafeteria study hall, like in the past, where it was like a large group of, and now have a study hall that is in a classroom manned by a teacher? And have you found that to be different?
I think, no, I don't think it's really been different. I think as Kate mentioned, a lot of people go to the libraries, and I think I personally go to libraries, so I haven't been there a lot, but it seems like, you know, when the study starts, you know, there's a line to sign in and then just go to the library, and then everybody kind of does their own thing that they did last year. It's not really changed as far as the size or with the room changes.
So just for your information, the feedback that the board got was that, it would be a good change culturally for students to be in classrooms with teachers, and it made a lot of sense to us, and so this was but there was no change from the board level. The contract that we presented to our teachers
nothing
was the
changed
same
from the
contract that we presented
contract.
forever. This was not that we did not change the language in the contract, it was just, we just started to do it differently. We encouraged Tim to do it differently. So it really, in essence, it's in conversation with the principal and the board, how do we feel about this change? It's really good information, but it does kind of come down to a little bit of a scheduling thing, doesn't it? A little bit? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that one of the points that I don't mean to interrupt you, but the contract and nothing changed contractually or organizationally, but what was communicated to the board was that having classroom teachers in the study hall was viewed as being very important for two reasons. One is that they had the skills of classroom management and knowing how to help the students, whereas someone who is not a teaching professional may not have that. But perhaps more importantly, in these smaller environments, it came closer to building those relationships between teachers and students that were being prioritized. But within that scope, it also became clear when we were given the data that we were told many CAV block teachers had very few people coming into their CAV blocks, 2 or 3 occasionally. Some were essentially having empty CAV blocks. So the administration were just reminded that they have the flexibility to assign study hall duty or CAV block. And I guess one of the questions I have is how many study halls are there, and what percent of the teachers no longer have CAV block? Because I don't know how that fleshed
how
out.
many is there?
I don't have the percentage off the top of my head. I think 14 total.
Well, 14% of STEM, 40.
Yeah, I can get that number for you. I don't,
But I mean, was it
together.
a big switch, a big change?
so we have 7 periods a day, and we have teachers covering out of those 7 per semester. So it's about 14 teachers, because you have the duty's semesterized. So you 7 first semester, 7 second semester. Not every period is covered with just one singular, and some the study is big enough that we can't host in a classroom, so it's still in the cafeteria with a teacher. There's a couple points I'd just like to make. So clearly, some of our best and brightest here presenting.
Yeah, great job, guys.
The information to us tonight. I think generally speaking, these students and many of the students that I think were part of the research do really well. I think the cafeteria environment provides a space just like any for many of our academically inclined students. I think it can become a very challenging environment to get work done, and there is additional challenges and distractions in that space that don't exist in a structured study hall. Years ago, prior to CAV block, we had freshman study halls, which had limited privileges, including library access. It was a much more managed space, similar to what you might see in like the 8th grade skills class, maybe a little bit more flexibility than that, but a much more academic setting. And then you had the sophomore and junior study halls, which were allowed to access the library, were allowed to access different spaces in the building. And then when CAV block came along, those all just disappeared. And it was a CAV block, it was a study hall in the cafeteria, monitored by, sometimes it was Cindy.
Substitutes, yeah.
But substitutes, oftentimes rotating faces, adults who didn't know the students. And that created for students to be anonymous, students who are coming up maybe in September from 8th grade, in a much bigger setting, without the structure of and stability of maybe the environment that existed prior to. So when that went away and we replaced it with the kind of RTI academically focused CAB block, it serviced a lot of kids. But there was also an element of students who needed a more structured space during those study hall periods, which are scattered throughout and plentiful. And I think as an administrator, when you lost that workforce, when you lost the ability to assign teachers to study halls that run every single period, sometimes two a period, it was a significant shift in how you manage the building. And from my perspective, I think it was a better situation to have teachers running those spaces, better for students, and potentially not those who are going to go find an academic setting or find a space where it doesn't really matter where they do their studying, right? You can do their calculus studying in the CAF. They could do it in the hallway. They could do it in the parking lot before they get to school or what have you.
I've never done that.
Some students are able to do that.
On the bus.
Some are not. And providing that structure, I think, is a responsibility of the school. And I don't think that exists in the large cafeteria study halls. So I think they ended with an ideal circumstance. If we're talking pie in the sky, yeah, you have CAB block with all teachers available, and you have study halls managed by teachers.
You mean we hire study hall teachers? That's like that
No.
would be the ideal thing. No, I'm just
No,
kidding. That
no,
would
no.
be like,
but
that's what
one
they're
of the
saying.
things is that I'm wondering, when you look at the original charter of CAB block and you look at the items that were on the first few slides, some of those elements have now moved, or not moved, but are we hope being covered in part by the new advisory programs. So it's almost taken the social and the non-instructional aspects of the original view of CAB block and shifted them over to the advisory. And what I'm wondering is, does the existence of formal advisory now change essentially the charter of what a CAB block type program needs to provide?
So I think tonight, the topic was really about how it's staffed.
Well,
I feel like tonight's presentation was about staffing and the use of it. We have a really large agenda here, Tom. Like, we are gonna have to follow this up on another day. We can't dig into where CAV block came from and how it went. This is a great presentation about staffing and how you use it now, but we as a board do need follow-up information about what Tom's saying.
but we don't
What
even
is-
know how it's staffed now.
We do, he just asked.
There were some rough numbers, but
Right,
we
so-
don't have any of the information here on the data of how are these things being attended. We don't have any of the numbers that say who was moved. And, there's stuff that says that,
Right.
45% of the social studies classes.
Humanities, that would be social
humanities
studies, world
were-
language, and
were
English.
Were moved to study halls, but only a small percentage of STEM.
Right. So no, we got some information tonight, and we really appreciate it, and I also really appreciate that you started with, knowing that we weren't gonna come out of here with a decision tonight, because it's really a lot to dig into. Does anyone else have other questions?
I'd certainly like to get into this more on our next agenda.
Yeah. I do feel like we need to
And
follow up
I would
with
be
more
interested in
information.
a little bit more of your experiences, like I'm hearing that in some cases CAB blocks were not very well attended. I would like to understand, has that been your experience? I mean, would like to dig in more, but apparently not now.
Well, it's just, I think we need more information, not necessarily from the students, but we need more information about how the adaptive scheduler works, where kids are going, what classes are being filled, what classes are, kids really looking for help. Those are the kinds of questions I think we have. I mean, that's kind of what, because it's morphed, and I am not in the same place as Tom. Like, I know that it began as a certain idea, and it's evolved and changed, but my question is, how is it helping? Is it still useful? And it's 3 45-minute periods a week, and we have advisory, and we're hearing from some people out in the world that advisory could be more useful if it were more off, a little bit more. So those are the questions we have, is how do we best use the time for these kids so that they can get what they need? Did I summarize that okay?
Yeah, I would
from the
just
board?
add one other thing that's unique for
Someone wanted
us.
to respond.
Okay, yeah, sure.
I would just like to say that, there are so many paths that we could go down, but moral of the story, we really just want to put out there that kids came to us saying that there was a need and a lack of the resources that they once had access to. And that's what we really wanted to pinpoint today. And I wouldn't want to stir the pot more or anything.
No, you did a great job, pinpointing
but
that. That's great.
on Adaptive Scheduler, we did count the numbers. Only 200 students on average even sign up for CalBlock. So there's that. We are trying to, look into the system more, but it's a lot there. But this was our main concern for the night.
No, I understand that. That's great.
It was a great presentation.
Yeah.
It was a really great
It's a unique
presentation.
opportunity for us to hear it from you guys,
It was
our
really
number one
helpful.
stakeholders.
Absolutely.
And we don't get that very often.
You're the
actually
first group in
converse.
over 10 years to actually give us real feedback on CavBlock.
Yeah.
I mean that
It's
sincerely.
been really helpful. It really helps us
We
to
would
know.
love to come back. I know I would.
I would too.
For
Please
sure.
do.
Well, those are the kinds of questions we have. It's just more about how it's being used and how kids are finding it and whether it's effective. And then this question you guys can't answer, but the real goal is RTI, to help those students who are really struggling, not kids who are hoping that they don't get a B plus, but they want like a we have kids who are not succeeding in classes, and is CalBlock helping them? That's really what we need to know, is it helping that group of students, that group that really needs extra help?
And the add-on to that is CavBlock, has it become a mandatory activity in some classes because we're trying to do too much in a class that can't be done in a classroom period?
There's a lot of good questions. So, but we so appreciate it. You guys are welcome to stay for the rest of our meeting and enjoy a data presentation on test scores or other things.
Sounds great.
Or run out.
I know, I don't need to go, but
Okay. Oh,
Good
you're
students.
enjoying it. It's great. Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much. Thank you
everyone.
very much. Thank you all.
Would anyone like the candy bowl?
You can pass it right back. Thank you.
You're pointing at me.
I am also closing public input at 8:03 p.m. Okay, so moving on, do you guys want to do me a favor, just move down a little so I can see you?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna move on to principals reports, but guys, we have a stacked agenda, so can you just kind of like give us a quick summary of your principals reports? I'm sure you'll be thrilled to get out of here kind of quick.
Everything is great, thank you.
Especially
Are there any questions?
Everything's
No, it was
perfect.
great. I read them all.
How about this?
Couldn't beat that.
How about we focus on the April reports, and we've read the March reports, and that was a month ago, so we've read them. We encourage the public to read the March principal and athletic reports, but we're gonna focus on the April ones today, so.
Sounds good.
And we're gonna start with you, Patrick.
Sounds good. Continuing with kindness in our rock throughout the year, just one activity we did was ask Rocks to put together kindness ideas to put on our bulletin board, which if you walk down Main Street here, the hallway, you'll see all the different ideas, and encouraged everybody, staff and students, to try one act of kindness at least once a week. Just highlighting our focus of kindness this year in rock. We're also continuing on with our Rock Reading Challenge, which some staff from the SAU, our superintendent-elect, has joined, as well as a few other SAU, just continuing on pushing the reading importance for our students, and it's been well received. We cooked dinner back in breakfast for students that won the challenge back in December, and our plan is to do something similar, maybe get them some Chick-fil-A or something like that for their efforts this round too. Eighth grade DC trip, there's 164, that was last year's number, 164 eighth grade students. They're in DC right now with our amazing assistant superintendent who stepped in for me this year. So thank you, Lauren DeGennaro. I do want to give her a big shout out. I don't know.
Big
other
shout
than
out to
these
Lauren.
two. Yeah, big shout out to Lauren. I don't know many SAU superintendents, assistant superintendents outside of ours that would have stepped in to go on this trip. So thank you to her. It sounds like it's another great trip. They'll come back tomorrow. They left Monday. They should be back tomorrow around 9 p.m. And it sounds like everything's going well. We did some day trips this week. Monday's trip was canceled due to the weather, down to the Freedom Trail. Yesterday we went to the Stone Zoo. Today they did the American Heritage Museum, which if you've never been to that museum, it's really impressive. It's really cool. You can drive a tank. That costs extra money. Our kids didn't get that opportunity, but some came back very excited about it and wanting to go back with their families to drive a tank. And tomorrow morning we'll go to Parker's Maple Barn, which I'm really excited for. And then we'll do Andre's, sorry for the typing spell there as well, Institute in Brookline. Our band went to the large group festival back in March, did a fantastic job. Big shout out to Liz Nault, who continues to bring a large group with her. And it sounds like they did a really great job in that festival. As you'll see in the library, there's some 7th grade art sculptures from Miss Ardrake, who is in her 2nd year. It's technically kind of her first official year here at HBMS, as she was a long-term sub last year. But she's been a great addition, and students are really enjoying her class. And yeah, the projects are really great. I did add some pictures from Matilda Jr. that I didn't include in the March report, and again, just a huge shout out to our new chorus general music teacher, Alyssa Costa. She took on the role of advising the drama club. 50 students were involved, and it was another incredible performance by our students, both on stage and off stage. So thank you to them for their efforts. And some important dates, open to questions.
Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions for Patrick? Congratulations on all of those things, and especially that Matilda performance, because 50 kids on that stage. It's a lot of kids on that stage, so that's
Well,
great.
there are some off-stage
I know,
participants,
but
yeah.
50 kids involved is pretty special,
Yeah.
so that's
Wrangling
great.
50 kids in a
Yeah.
theater program is pretty
Pretty
special.
All right, moving on to high school principal's report.
Yeah, I'm gonna do Brian's first, if that's okay.
That's fine, but just focus on April, thank you.
Yep, just focusing on April.
Unless we're missing something major in March, like if there was a major thing.
Nope, we can just cover April. So congrats to our newly formed tri-op ice hockey team. So Merrimack, Hollis, Brookline, Dairyfield ice hockey team came up just short of a state championship. They lost in the Division II finals to St. Thomas. Was a great game, great season, and looks to be a very successful relationship with those two schools in boys hockey. So our participation numbers look great. I want to highlight just a couple things. As Holly always points out, the ebbs and flows of participation numbers. Oftentimes you see one decrease, but increase in another area. Outdoor track, we are approaching 100 students.
That's
in
crazy.
Outdoor track.
That's like
this
it
year.
used to be.
Yeah. So really great to see. Not that they were low prior to. We had 71 kids last year, but we're 99 participants in outdoor track, boys and girls this year. So that being said, we're down to one team for softball again this year, no JV team, and it looks like maybe girls tennis, I think, was down a little bit. Girls tennis is down a little bit. So overall, participation numbers are up just slightly, and they kind of seem to ebb and flow between sports, like always. And we did send a group of scholar athletes up to Concord just last week. Students who have lettered in 2 sports or more their senior year, maintaining a B+ average throughout. So congrats to those award winners. All right, for my board report, I want to say congratulations to our math team. Finished the regular season champs in the, the New Hampshire State Math Meet held at NHDI. We sent 10 members of our math team up there, and we took home 2nd place in Division II. So congrats once again to our math team. Along with our 2nd place finish, freshman Miko Ju earned high score award for his individual performance. So congratulations to Miko. Bravo to our HBHS Theater Department for the recent production of Little Shop of Horrors. Mr. Dylan Silcox, the director, and Mr. Chaz Rogers, music director, for the leadership, with well over 70 students involved in the production.
There you go. That's huge.
Pit band, set crew, costumes, etc. One of our biggest productions in several years. Congratulations. Congratulations to senior Mason Marshall, who took home a couple awards for his writing in journalism. So the Gold Key Award, highest regional honor for his journalism article, Hands-on History, first archaeology class in New Hampshire. That's Mr. McFarland, a story about Mr. McFarland's class. And an honorable mention for his piece titled Media Coverage of Mental Health Needs to Change. I have been including some highlights from our CavCron in my newsletters, which I know the board does get. So
Yeah.
Mason has done several pieces that have gone out this year. So congrats to Mason, well deserved. I do want to highlight, we did discuss briefly offline. I know the YRBS was slated for earlier this school year. However, given an executive order by President Trump, there has been a change in the actual survey, and the results from previous surveys. So the specifics of that are included in the board packet. I did include the latest survey for the board to review. So this school year, we had our first international trip to Spain. It was a successful trip. I know Ms. Berrigan would echo those sentiments, that the trip was a huge success. And the board approved a trip to the British Isles for next school year. Mr. Hess will have an opportunity to oversee that process. At the time, I was comfortable approving one this year. It was our first year getting back into international travel after COVID. Next year, we have one on the docket already. There's a second request for a trip to Quebec. We have done this trip before.
Yeah.
It has been run by this individual staff member before, but there is a request. If I were returning, I would be in favor of this happening. Mr. Hess happens to be here tonight, which is great. But there is a request, international trip to Quebec request, which I assume the board will consider for voting maybe next month. So just want to highlight the itinerary. Everything is in the board packet.
Great.
I also want to highlight the DAR Good Citizen winner, Ms. Kate Berrigan. So Kate won not only our local chapter's award, she advanced to the state level, where she was one of 55 New Hampshire students selected by their high schools. And Kate, not surprisingly, took home the state championship. So I had the honor. Yeah, so
Good job, Kate.
I had the honor of attending the award ceremony with Kate and her family. Kate, I got to read her essay before a full house up at the Capone Center in Concord. Kate advances to the regional round, where there's only 7 students from New York and New England. And then one of those 7 lucky winners will advance to the national championship, which is in DC. And I know Kate's going to Annapolis, so I don't know what she'll do with that $10,000 when she takes it home. But there's a $10,000 scholarship attached to that if she were to win that. So congratulations.
I'll invest it.
Invest it.
Congratulations.
I
Is the
know you
essay
would.
available?
Maybe not
Is it-
today.
Is it on the website somewhere?
Her essay?
Yeah.
I can get it to you. And just a little side note, so Kate, the way the contest works is they have to sit for a timed, so it's sealed envelope what the prompt is, and so it's done in the main office, and we had it set up so Kate had to do the essay. Was it that night you emailed me, or was it the next day?
It was next, I think I talked.
So she came in the next day and said, Mr. Garzone, I don't want to submit the essay. It's not good. I don't know what I wrote. It doesn't represent Hollis Brookline High School. I don't want you to submit it. It took me about 20 minutes to convince her, no, Kate, it's pretty good. I'm gonna submit it. And of course she won, so.
That's great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, we got some important dates coming up. Guitar night in April. We just had a dance last weekend. We have a performing arts concert tomorrow night, and we have standardized testing coming up as well, which we're going to hear all about in a little bit, so I don't want to steal your thunder.
Yeah, there's so much on this agenda.
And of course, I'm open to comments or
Great, are
questions.
there any
as always.
questions for Jim? No, just congratulations, Kate, congratulations to the hockey team, congratulations to Mason Marshall. I always love to see some journalism stuff going on, especially, I say it all the time, given the times, it's really important to know fact from not fact. So I think it's great that we have somebody doing that, that's awesome.
I do have a request, though, on the Quebec trip.
Yep.
Looking at the itinerary, it was really hard to identify which components actually have the academic element. Oftentimes in the thing, it'll talk about what they're doing and then what's going to happen when they come back to sort of close that loop on the academic element of the experience. It would be nice if that information was also available.
You good?
Speaking French. Okay. All right. So any other questions? All right, so we'll get a little bit more information about Quebec City next time. We'll put that as a vote for next time. We'll talk about youth risk behavior survey, I assume, next time, but it's really the time for this year has run out, right? Yeah, okay,
So does that mean it's not going to be given?
right, because it's too, you can't give it in May or June.
No.
They won't,
No, I'm
yeah. And also the
supportive of
law
that.
is changing
I'm
on
supportive
it.
of that. I just wanted to
It's important that
Find out.
the House just passed a law that it has to go to the Senate, but it said that it would be an opt-in instead of an opt-out. And once it becomes opt-in, the only people who are gonna take it are people who are interested in taking it, so it
Yeah,
changes
I
the
already
data.
I think
so.
we've already, the tipping point had already been reached last
So
year.
we're kinda there, but, all right, so thank you very much. Is there any other comments on principals' reports? Okay, so, we're gonna move on with the rest of our agenda. I really appreciate it. Do we need the principals for any other thing?
Nope.
No, it is really fine for you all to take off. We did not hear from,
Nice to meet everybody.
a general.
Bye.
We're good.
Drive safely.
No, we're good. You guys can go. Do you wanna stay for data?
I was gonna stay for data.
You wanna stay for the state
Yeah.
testing? Okay,
Yeah.
that's great. That would be awesome. Unfortunately, it's not quite in the next part of, we have a couple more things to do before we get there, but we'll get there pretty quickly. All right, calendar presentation.
Okay, so we have a 25-26 calendar, looks really similar to most years where we have our flex day for teachers to do the online training. All teachers return August 25th. 7th and 9th grade orientation on the 27th. All students return on the 28th. This calendar, a couple things to note. We have 5 early release plans. 4 of the 5 are planned on Wednesdays, and the reason they are on Wednesdays is to align with CTE calendars of other schools where we send our students, so there are fewer disruptions and discrepancies between our calendar and the receiving school's calendar. So trying to be in better alignment. What we've done when we've had multiple early releases on the same day is we've flipped schedules, so it's not always the same class that's impacted in that way. And we tried to move them around so that we have either a pre-D day or an early release, per month toward the start of the school year. Other things to note, we have, because there's December 22nd and 23rd, we can go to school on Monday, Tuesday, and then it's essentially a really long break of a week and a half because January 1st is a Thursday, and the likelihood of a good attendance on one day, January 2nd, is low. So the vast majority of districts in the state are just taking that the rest of that week off. Yeah.
That makes sense.
And then February break is typical. April break, it's the 4th week in February. It's the 4th week in April, which bumps into May. Now, one thing to note that maybe Mr. Hess should have stayed for is I have an orange June 5th, 6th for proposed graduation to start the conversation of a potential Friday night graduation as opposed to a Saturday morning. I know traditions are hard to break, but there are financial and safety reasons why it would make sense to potentially move graduation to the turf field. And then we can hold it in the evening. So that is not for me to decide, but I'm putting it out there so that there might be questions as to, when's graduation? It's Friday or Saturday. We don't know. So
Do we approve this calendar or we don't? We approve the calendar. Can we approve the calendar without making that decision?
yes.
So, because I feel like that would be
That's a
something
huge
that
decision,
I
yeah.
really want the public to weigh in on and like let people think about it and talk about the pros and cons, but I don't think we have time to do that tonight. And I
100%.
think-
Yeah,
I think-
yeah.
But we can approve the calendar with those two as potential dates and then put that on an agenda to be discussed so that the public will know.
Yeah.
Because parents will have things to say,
Absolutely.
especially parents of class of 2026.
And graduation being on the calendar doesn't mean that's graduation.
Right.
Because with snow and everything, it's 175 days is a whole requirement, so we always put the placeholder. And then if we have a mild winter like this, nothing changes, but there's been years where we'd have to move back a week.
Are we finalizing graduation date? April
No.
meeting?
No.
Not
Did-
on this calendar,
Not-
and not for next
Oh,
year's
No,
calendar.
for this year.
But for this year's,
Yeah,
yes.
this
April, we usually say,
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
we will finalize the calendar, that, yes. And
Question about this is this an early start, relatively speaking, this because it's an early graduation being proposed.
So this year, graduation will be June 7th. So this puts, if we had it on the Saturday, it would be June 6th. So it's just a one-day shift.
No, he was asking if we have start earlier or not, oh, yes,
Well,
so
he
we're
was
not.
asking
I
for-
got
Right,
I
but
got
it goes
I understand.
backwards,
I
yeah.
lost track.
Labor Day, right?
But this year we started early,
This year we started August 26th.
26?
Yeah, we always start,
The Thursday before.
Was it
the
the
teachers always
the
return the
last-
Monday before Labor Day.
Yeah.
Okay, so you just need an approval
Yeah,
on this
but
calendar
yeah,
and we'll
I
keep
was-
the,
I'm
we'll
seeing
keep
Labor Day's on the
graduation
1st.
date to be.
What was it this,
to be
it
dis-
wasn't that early this
To
year.
be determined, okay.
Yeah.
All right, and so could you at this point say you think the graduation would be scheduled for June 7th? And then what, have we determined the last day of school or are we
So
still
we've
waiting to
had
see if
two
it's gonna
snow days, and with snow coming every evening this week. No, but the 2 snow days would put us at, I'm sorry, I mean September. Let me just go to June. That would put us at June 17th for
Is
the
that
last
what
day of
day of the
school.
week is that?
A Tuesday.
And how many days does that give us in the? is
That
it-
so if we've had 2 snow days, so
you
we
talking
build
about
5
this year or
in, so
next
we're
year?
subtracting
This
3.
Okay.
We're talking about this year.
So we've stopped talking about the new calendar?
Yes,
Why?
because we don't want to talk about it anymore.
But how many days does this calendar, the new calendar propose?
So there's 178 student days plus 5
Okay.
snow days built in, as we always do.
Okay. Okay, so we will get to that when we make a motion to approve it. All right. So next on discussion is the revenue and expense report. And then we'll get to you, Drew. I see you over there.
Okay. So ending third quarter, we're projecting a fund balance at the end of the year to be $443,002. That's about $170,000 higher than we were projecting in our January report. Expenses are still showing savings with $951,000 in savings pretty much across the board. What's different this time than 3 months ago when we looked is more so on the revenue side, where we're looking at projecting to receive $408,000 more than budget. And if you look at the grant line, that's where you'll see the $143,956 more than budget for grants. That is from the SAFE grant, which stands for Security Action for Education, established in 2022 to support school security and safety improvements, and both the middle school and high school were able to benefit from those funds.
Have the money been received?
Those, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
That's actually come in? We actually got those checks?
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then so putting it all together, the expense savings and higher revenue leads to an expected unreserved fund balance of $1,208,002. And then funding our maintenance trust, retained fund balance, and contingency fund, which all were approved at the March meeting, we have a projected fund balance of $443,000.
Okay.
That's my
Is there
concise
any
version.
any comments or questions on that?
Just a comment for the board. In May, I think we should have a discussion to see if the board would like to accelerate any of the roofing at the middle school. the voters approved the solar and that, we potentially have an opportunity. We had told the budget committee would be returning approximately $200,000 to the taxpayers. So there is an opportunity, if you so choose, to maybe do another large section of the middle school roof, which may allow us to accelerate the implementation of the solar, as well as just to get that capital improvement kind of moving quickly.
Will there be an update in May on the plan for the two capital projects?
Go ahead, you got it.
For capital improvement or for our specific facilities project?
The facilities project of,
I have updates for you now.
because one of the big concerns I have is the unknown status of the rebates.
We'll get to that at number 8 on your agenda. Under
Gonna be
discussion.
tonight?
Okay. So, thank you so much, Linda, for that information.
No
So
problem.
appreciate it. You know that you are welcome to skedoodle if you'd like to, but you're also welcome to stay because these are so enthralling. So, I do want to, I asked to put this on the calendar, on the agenda, debrief of annual meeting. I like to have a few minutes for all of us. It was so long ago and maybe we've blurted out, so many things have changed, but are there any, and Drew is here because he has some comments that he'd like to share, so we can start with Drew, and then we can move on if anybody else has anything that they'd like to say. We got some feedback at the annual meeting. I will say that one of the pieces of feedback we got, we're addressing tonight by having a data presentation about test scores, so that those folks who bring up test scores at our annual meeting will have more of an understanding of our test scores. So that is one of the things that we're doing tonight. But Drew, do you have anything that you'd like to share with us, comments that how we could help?
Well, it was an interesting experience with the motion to pass over. Now, I know it's been part of Brookline's rules for some time, although I got differing answers as to exactly how it worked in Brookline. Certain people were very upset with it happening, and I mean more than Eric Power. Some of the backbenchers was like, aren't you just denying them of their right to speak or something like that? Other people said, yes, we're tired of listening to this stuff. You know, it gives a way to shortchange it. Somebody said, oh, I didn't realize that you were going to do that, you know, understand tabling and then restricting an article. It's a lower bar because it's a majority. One person said he was glad that the motion to pass over was debatable because he felt that that was helpful. So I'm curious what the board and the administration felt about that.
Great. Does anybody want to chime in? I don't want to do all the talking.
I think a lot of the measures that you put into place, Drew, I think positively affected the pace of the meeting. Surely, I think we were done within 4 hours, if I'm not mistaken, which is a lot less than previous years. So I think to some extent it's been effective. I can understand maybe some of the concerns about passing over. I think it's probably worthy of having a discussion, allowing discussion during those measures, so people can understand why there is wide support for it versus maybe not understanding, because not everyone is connected to what we do, so they're a little more, they don't have the proximity that we have. So I thought overall, I think it worked very well, and I think it really put a little more guardrails around the evening, because at the end of that evening, we still have to get our jobs done, and the key things that we need to get done, and there's often a lot of extra stuff thrown in there, and so that's my 2 cents.
Just to clarify what we as a board asked for, and it wasn't just us, it was the budget committee here, you know, back in October, so months and months before. We suggested, the changes we suggested, motion to pass over wasn't one of them. We suggested making it harder to move, giving a higher threshold to moving an article to before the business that the board presents. And then we suggested the having people sit down, like motion to end debate meant end debate, and people behind the line had to sit down, behind that person. And then the third thing we suggested was, to limit presentations from the petitioners to just 2 minutes. So those were our three things that we presented. So we didn't actually take a position as a board on, and we just talked about that motion to pass over. So I guess for me, I understand why people might be frustrated with it, but the difference to me is you can still just make a motion to table and then make a motion to restrict reconsideration. And I guess there's a likelihood that there could be somebody trying to bring it back up, and then you'd have to come back 7 days and talk about whatever it is that you tabled. So I get why there's semantics here.
Yeah.
But I think if the majority of the people in the room want to pass it over, then they're probably going to vote to table it and restrict reconsideration. So
I would expect so.
I just think it's, whenever we don't fully debate something and the body decides to table it or to pass over it, it's hard for those people who want to talk about it. But it's also really hard for people in the legislative body to continue to deal with petition warrant articles that have 25 signatures that are up over and over
I
again.
think when you talk about that, the inability for folks to maybe present it or discuss it or whatever, I think what they don't understand is many of these petition warrant articles have been perennially brought up over and over and over again. And one of the key reasons why I think passing over was so widely accepted is because many people feel this has been debated to nausea, and it takes so much time out of the limited time that we have in that evening. If I could be wrong, but there may have been one or two petition warrant articles that came up that weren't similar to years past, and I think they got heard.
Well, the
I could be
budget
wrong,
cap-
but I believe that at least one or two.
Didn't
The
get
budget
heard, but
cap
there
was
a
new.
lot of discussion about passing over.
Yeah.
Okay.
The budget cap was new this year because the legislature just allowed
Right.
it.
Drew,
I will tell you that in Brookline, it wasn't the school meeting because they don't have a meeting, but in the town meeting, there was very similar action and a fair amount of applause.
With the Passover.
Andy?
I just want to, the only thing I heard is from the time we start the meeting to the time we start talking about an actual article, people would like that shortened drastically. We spend well over almost 90 minutes before we get to the first article. And I think the other thing that people commented is some of the presentations to set the articles up are then rediscussed when people have questions. So they're not really paying attention in that pre-meeting,
Yeah.
and now we get to the article, and now they ask the question, it's already been answered. So, and that was a
Are you thinking
number of people.
Darlene's presentation where she goes through the entire agenda to the first one and they don't really listen to that?
Well, it's just, so many people came up to me and said, we're voting on this first article after 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's, I'm not gonna be there next year, but I haven't heard that in my time here. So if we could shorten that down some way, shape, or form, and I don't know if you can.
So when
Yeah.
I was gonna say, but you've been with our district for 10 years and you're a known entity. We have a new superintendent next year, and you used to do a little introduction of how the school's doing. Some of the questions that we got repetitively were about things like our success. And so we don't even take time to present that. We spend a good chunk of time presenting how much money we're gonna spend, but we don't have we don't
Metrics
even
and
have a
dollars.
presentation about what our kids do, or what our successes are, or how our test scores are, or whatever we wanted to put in there. So as much as I wanna shorten that time, I actually think next year we need to do 5 minutes of like, what's going on in the schools? Because this is what you're paying for. And so,
Here's what your support produced.
right, this is why we're asking for your support, and we have a new face, and I think it, you know, Gina, that would give her an opportunity to connect with the community, because Andy you used to do that, and that builds trust, and that builds like, so that now when Andy gets up to answer a question, people are like, well, Andy said, so, and that's what, you know, I mean, it makes a difference, so we need to think about that next year, so we do need to work on that presentation, because it is really important stuff.
Oh, I don't disagree. It's just trying to give the feedback of, and I haven't been approached by people before, but a number of people, and I think part of it was because we were voting on contracts,
Yeah.
and a lot of families showed up for the first time at multiple meetings that have never been to a meeting. So they didn't really even understand it, and I don't know how we correct that, but whether you were at the Hollis meeting or you were at the co-op meeting, a lot of people had kind of like deer in the headlights because they don't know what town meeting is.
I think in contrast to Brookline's old meetings and what they do in town meeting is there isn't an overview presented. So people who are used to the Brookline environment, the long preamble, they generally don't go through the rules. They talk about one or two of them, but basically says refer to your book. They don't introduce any articles until that article comes up in a motion. So the presentation that's done that outlines all of them and summarizes all the monetary impact, those people who know the procedure really understand that that's an element that requires focus. But I think a lot of people just view this as the overview. I don't need to listen until we get to the article. And they're somewhat surprised when they get to the article and it's a very brief presentation because most of the background has already been presented.
Well, I think a lot of the preamble also was people fighting your rules. And there's no, you know.
I mean, I can cut that down. The only thing that I feel that I absolutely must bring up is the ability of the members to overrule the moderator and voting to approve the rules. So I could shorten my presentation quite a bit and say just see page whatever it is in the.
This year was a bit of an exception because you were introducing changes. And I think that what you did was both appropriate and meaningful, but it certainly added time.
But I don't need to go over reconsideration and restricting reconsideration, although.
People catch on to that.
Presumably, the new people in the stands are gonna say, what the heck is that?
Probably. You know, I mean, I know Darlene has fine-tuned her presentation as well, so, yeah, I think we have some good points here, but is there any-
Well, my advice to her, and I apologize if she's listening, was by the time you get to the third slide of numbers, people's eyes are glazed and she's lost them for the rest of her presentation.
Yeah.
So my opinion is you ought to say, here's the budget, here's the way the apportionment comes out, here's your taxes. That's 3 slides and done.
I think the problem is that then the questions come. I mean, we have a question and answer format, and that also takes a lot of time. Instead of just having people like speak their point, we do a lot of questions and answers, which takes a lot of time. So.
And it's also, you can prepare for everything, but then you're guaranteed that the new question is going to come out of left field. That it's like, I don't have anything on that, and it makes us look stupid, even though we're not.
So are there any other comments or questions for Drew? I don't know if we've given you an answer on Passover, but I mean, I support it. I think it's fine.
Yeah, I support it.
I
I do too.
I do too. I think it's
Okay.
a fine thing, so. People don't have to vote for it if they don't like it.
Well, and it's 2/3.
Right.
It really,
Right.
really does have a high bar.
There wasn't a heck of a lot of close calls.
No,
Yeah.
Right.
it was resoundingly decided.
Right. And I know that, you know, some people were upset, but, you know, this is not a unrestricted free speech area. This is a legislative body that tries to
Yes.
get things done.
Absolutely.
I want to mention one thing that is off topic. Right now, the state primary is on the second Tuesday in September, and 26th will be the next round. In the legislature is a bill that is likely to pass to make it the second Tuesday in June.
What?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you didn't know that?
What, I didn't follow that bill? Like, I'm following every other bill.
Right.
That one's not one that I pay attention to.
So,
What's driving that?
They want to make sure they're the first.
Yeah, because they keep, people
Oh.
keep trying to get in front of the first.
Oh,
And they,
yeah.
and New
that.
Hampshire wants to stay.
no, it has nothing to do with this
No, 'cause this
presidential
is the-
primary.
this is the state primary.
No, I know, but they still they want to make sure that they're way ahead of the game
Oh.
instead of being piled on September to November.
Well, certainly the Secretary of State doesn't like September because he has to turn around the ballots for the overseas folks. And they have to have their ballots in hand 45 days before the election by federal law. So he's been pushing it.
But it hasn't passed yet, so we're not.
It hasn't passed yet, but I guarantee you I'll be back sometime next year asking to use the high school on the second Tuesday in June.
June 2nd.
Second
Which-
Tuesday in
That
June.
gets pretty tricky. That's like graduation practice, whatever. But let's see what happens.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Thanks, Drew.
All right. Anything else you want to talk about in terms of recap?
I think we're good. I think we're good. We liked the new rules. They seem to work.
Thank you for all your
Thank you.
work.
Thank
We
you for all your
appreciate
work,
it.
Drew. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. General assurances.
Yes, so we have the general assurances this year that that I'm looking for the board chair to sign. So this is for our federal grants, so IDEA and Title II, that's all we accept at this point. There will be allocations for Title II for next year, because they're forward budgeted. Who knows if we'll have Title II after next year.
Okay. So during deliberations, we'll make a motion to allow the board chair to sign the general assurances. Does anybody have any questions on that? Basically, okay.
Look at us flying through.
And then we have a new CTE agreement. Do you want to talk about that, Gina?
Yeah, so I met with Nashua. Principal Gerzone was there as well, and Nashua, Merrimack, Halls Brookline, and Amherst.
Albert?
And
Do they have representatives there?
I feel like maybe Albert, I don't remember, but anyway, they came together. Nashua wanted us to sign their regional agreement. One of the concerns that we had with regional agreements that we were faced with in the past is that they were 20-year agreements, and a lot can happen in 20 years. This agreement is a 4-year agreement, so it's through, it goes through June 30th, 2028. So it's a little bit more reasonable. It's basically stating that we will send they'll save seats for our students at both Nashua North and Nashua South, and that, and then we would pay our portion of the tuition if we go ahead and send our students there.
Now, you don't have this as an item for.
I assumed you'd want to look at it and then
Yeah.
sign it next month.
So bring it for next month? Okay, so how about we bring it for, everybody knows to read through it and bring their questions next month?
Perfect.
Does that work for everybody? Is that okay, Tom?
Yeah, it's just that we're piling a lot into May when we just had
I know.
a discussion that said we
We
made
are.
a 2-hour non-public in May. So just keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm, yep, I'm keeping it in mind, but, we have the CTE agreement, potentially some more conversation about cap block. And what else was in May?
That's it.
I
So
thought we were
Besides
going-
the non-public.
I thought that you had said previously, not tonight, but previously, that we were likely to have resume policy work in May.
We may have some policy work in May, but we may not. I mean, we haven't had a policy meeting in 2 months, so we might be careful, but we'll have a cap block conversation in May, and we'll have CTE in May. And then we also have the non-public.
And we'll have some financial stuff, I bet.
Yeah, I know, but I think we won't be, this meeting's gone, yeah, I think we'll be okay. But if you have questions on this, if you've had a chance to like read through it and have questions now, we can ask them now. I'm not gonna stop you. I mean, time now, time later.
Well, the only thing that I know about is, there were, I thought, a lot of unanswered questions in general, whether we really wanted to make a commitment even at the 4-year level. I wasn't sure where we stood on that.
So what would be nice to have an agreement is that they are going to reserve seats for our students. And if we don't sign the agreement, then the reserve seats would go to the other districts that sign, and then our students would then be eligible to take any available seats, which there might be no seats. So knowing how many students we send to Nashua North and Nashua South each year, I think it would sort of protect our ability to send students. A 4-year agreement, which looks like it's actually a 3-year agreement, is, I don't think, too concerning. 20 years just seems a little bit unreasonable.
We haven't signed.
We've
this
never
yet.
signed one.
Okay.
We've
just taken our chances.
Correct. We had looked
And is the
at,
agreement only for Nashua, not with Alvern or?
correct, yeah.
Well, signing it with Nashua doesn't limit us.
No.
We can still use
No, I
Auburn
didn't
as
know
well.
if it was a regional
Yeah.
agreement or just a Nashua agreement.
It's an agreement drafted by Nashua, and then all those other districts were at the table, and they've asked them to sign it, and those seats are reserved for those who sign it.
So what happens if
If
they
we-
get signatures from a whole bunch and they don't have enough seats for everyone? How does that happen? How does that get apportioned? Does it say?
So I think in the agreement, it shows that it's for Sauhegan High School, Merrimack High School, Hallsbrook Glen High School, and Nashua. So they're really just reserving for those districts.
Right, but does it say how many they're reserving for each? Or do we?
It was, I want to say it was 30% of the total seats, divided between all those districts. And then the question I had,
30 would be for all 3 of the districts?
Yes.
Total?
I think the general consensus from the table was a better and stronger working relationship from the host and the sending schools would allow for down to individualized conversations about individual students and prioritizing situations. So I think getting away from the large regional agreements and down to, we're gonna agree with Nashua School District to send our kids to this receiving school, allows us to have conversations at the table more regularly with the other sending schools to say, hey, I've got 6 kids that really need this program and you've got 3, and they can fit both, but maybe instead of just allocating only 3 for us and 3 for you, we can send all 6 of ours and it's no skin off anyone else's back. So at one point, being too rigid with you get 3 and you get 3 and you get 3, and they don't use their 3, we might have 3 kids left out in the cold because we filled all our seats. So I think the goal was to continue those conversations, and maybe not the superintendents, but those working in the schools, the CTE directors, along with assistant principals or principals of sending schools throughout the school year to kind of fine tune who gets to go, and then individually as a school, this junior, we've got to get in this program. This is a make or break situation for this kiddo, and we get to prioritize individual kids too. So I think this will lend itself to.
It'll be advantageous for us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is the pricing locked in? Who establishes the cost, the tuition cost?
well, a lot of it is funded, grant funded. I was under the impression that it had to do with the per pupil cost, like a portion of theirs. Yeah.
Is it the state's per pupil cost or the schools? I mean, the state specified per pupil cost, or is it the one where they can make up their own?
I can't I can't answer that factually. My
Yeah.
assumption was always that it was
The state?
the receiving school.
Yeah, because that was one of the things that I heard is that some of the schools have artificially high.
I can reach out.
Yeah, we can get that answer.
So I just want to make sure we're not locking ourselves into
Crazy amounts of money.
subsidizing
No.
the Nashua program.
The total cost would be 30% of their seats, and the rest would be, to the for all the sending schools. That is written in there.
I'm looking at the budget estimate for Nashua, and it's got a total receiving district tuition rate of $16,614 for this school year. We just pay part of that, but that's the tuition rate they're showing. So I don't know if that's something.
That's tuition rate, is that what you said?
That's
And
what
it's like
they're
for a whole day.
That's what
for
they're quoting their tuition rate as.
like a full-time student.
Yeah.
We don't send full-time students.
No, but that's below the state average, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So our charge was about $830 per student for one semester for Nashua.
I'll find out how they calculate that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, so I think we have more questions. We can ask them when we approve it, and when we have that discussion.
Great.
Is that okay with everybody? All right, so moving on to the co-op data presentation. That is you, Gina.
Okay, so I just wanted to share that I'm very excited about a couple of our new hires moving forward with their ability to look out and manipulate data, and I feel like you're going to be really impressed next year. So,
So this is sort of a precursor.
So it's a precursor. Yeah.
Touch, a little
Yeah.
taste. Okay.
A little taste, but prepare to be impressed next year. All right, so just some straight data. As you know, we do New Hampshire SAS. We test in ELA and math, grades 3 through 8, and then we also test science in grades 5, 8, and 11. For our 11th graders, the state test is the SAT. So our spring 2024 SAS results, so this is grade 7 and grade 8, were the blue, and this is ELA, and the state is the striped. And we did well. 70% of our students were at or above proficiency, compared to 54 and 49%. So solid job by those students. Looking at math, we had 62% and 65% at or above proficiency in grade 7 and 8, and that's compared to 40% and 37% across the state. Looking at our science results, our grade 8 students were at 51% proficient, and compared to 34% at the state. And then our grade 11 students were at 52% at or above proficiency compared to 39% of the state. So one thing, as a science teacher that I care a lot about is what is the science test? So the SAS science test is you're going to get earth space or life science or physical science. So you could be sitting next to someone who's taking a physical science test and you're taking a life science test. When you are in 11th grade, you might be taking anatomy and physiology. You might be taking physics. You might be taking biology. And it doesn't matter. You're going to get whatever test happens to be assigned to you. So what is it that we're actually assessing? Is it anything relative to what the students are learning? We do earth and space science in 8th grade. And then if a student is taking physical science in 9th grade, it's physical science with some earth science. So to take an 11th grade earth and space science test doesn't seem like a really good indication of whether or not we're teaching science very well. If you can also break those down from my perspective, and I can see how our students are doing. So life science, our students were those students who took the life science test, our students were well above the average in life science. In physical science, we were meeting the average. Earth and space, we had a little bit below the average. And then one area was above the average, but specifically that standard had to do with, it was really a life science standard with some earth science mixed in. So it really demonstrates that our students are mostly taking life science, most of our students are taking life science in 10th grade, and we're doing well in that strand, but it's just not what everyone's taking in terms or what they're assigned for the SAS test. And then another huge contributing factor is what our percent participation is in SAS science. So in 2024, we're supposed to hit 95. So that's that first top column. 95% participation is what we're required to achieve. And we had 88% participation from our 8th graders and 80% participation from our 11th graders. In 2020. So if we had 100 11th graders, only 80 of them actually took it.
Took the test?
Correct. The year prior, we're supposed to hit that 95. 83% of our 8th graders took the SAS science test, and 76% of our 11th graders took it.
And what are the reasons they don't take it?
Well, thank you for asking. So Every Student Succeed Act requires that we are going to measure achievement of 95% of all students. It's an essential. It's essential to get that 95%, so we really know if our students are doing well or not. However, New Hampshire passed RSA 193C6, which permits parents or legal guardians to opt their children out of state assessments. As such, parent opt-outs are considered non-participants per ESSA and may negatively impact our overall performance. Let me show you how. Example 1, 100 students are required to take the test. 3 students are parent opt-outs. So the weighted average is of the 97 students. So we would take the weighted average, 3.4, let's say, times 97 students, and divide it by 97 students. So there's no penalty when we are above 95% participation. Our weighted average decreases when we fall below that. If every student that falls below the 95% participation, we score a 0 on those tests. So we would take our weighted average of the 3.4, multiply it by, let's say, 93 students, if we only had 93 students participating. But our divisor is 95. So all of our parent opt-outs negatively impact our overall performance.
So an opt-out student is assumed to have taken the test and scored 0?
Yes.
Below the 95%.
Yeah, anything below the 95.
We're allowed 5% to opt out, basically, but once we go beyond that.
So they take all of our students, they only count results of 95% of them?
They take all of our students, the weighted average, and then multiply it by the number of students that took it. They divide it by the...
What's the weighting, though?
Well, we're saying that we're taking a weighted average where
How do you weight the average?
So you take the average
Yeah.
of all the students, and then you multiply it by the number of students who perform, or who take the test, and you divide it by either the 95% or higher. So it becomes a weighted average. So that's straight from the...
That's not weighting.
Okay, so this is straight from the state. This is how they... this is their technical advisory that they put out. I just put a copy and paste it. But essentially, we're penalized, and zeros are assigned to students when we don't hit our 95.
Is this true for all, not
Yes.
just the science?
Correct.
So when you go back up here, go
Yep.
back to like the beginning of all of this, and we look at the results. So what I've been looking at is how we compare to the state, but also and when we get later on. But like what I've noticed is, actually it's for later on. What I've
Okay.
noticed is that the state, we kind of ride the state. Like when the state gets, like look at those numbers. So if we're 54, 40, like drops. Well, usually we drop. Never mind. We'll wait till that later.
Okay. But so, well, what I was going to share is that our performance is not necessarily accurately reflected. It becomes particularly important to look at grade 11 because our 11th graders take the SAT. That's required for the state test. But they also have to take the SAS science test, which is not really that closely aligned with the science they're taking. There's no benefit for a junior to take it. It's in the middle of AP testing. It's in the middle of SAT testing. It's in the middle of students trying to work with or it's right before AP testing, It's right, let me just finish my train of thought. It's right in, when students are trying to meet with their CAV block teachers to get help in a class that they care about. So it's easy, and you can watch our opt-outs starting from grade 3 and moving to grade 11. They increase year over year. Kids don't want to take the test, and parents opt them out. It's not a valued assessment. But what were you going to say, Tim?
So we took it yesterday, and while we will do a make-up date, we're tracking in the high 20s, almost 30% of our juniors opted out.
Wow.
Can I say something too?
Go ahead, Beth.
Well, I just, you know,
Except
I,
Right.
I
Go ahead, Beth.
think, I just wanted to share as a parent who has for almost 2 decades now been opting my children out of these tests for a lot of the reasons Gina spoke about. It's, you know, I think that's something when we look at the numbers, it's easy to just point out, oh, we're not performing or whatnot. But the reason, one of the fundamental reasons I opt my children out is because it's a poor assessment of where they're at. And the science is a really good example of why. It's a test that's a single test taken on one day. It's not really good assessment, and it costs a lot of money. There's so many, I can't even like begin. I've
You have to
written
pay to take it?
op-eds. What's that?
No, the state
take it.
pays.
No, you don't. The state pays. But, you know, in different states, it's managed differently across the country, but there's major flaws in it across the entire country, and it's not a good measure of how our teachers are teaching. It's not a good measure of how our students are learning. So there's a lot of reasons parents choose to opt out of it, but my point being, like, it's not always a good measure, and that's why some of us make that decision, so.
Have we seen more opting out since COVID? Like, do you think it's somehow related to people feeling like, I mean, I think we've gotten a lot more education on test anxiety and kids really struggling to take tests and, you know, kids, has there been
Sure.
some of that?
I don't think it's post-COVID. I think it's post the RSA allows us
Okay.
to have
When did
to
that
accept.
go in?
Was it 2018?
I think it's even a little bit longer.
2016 by chance?
It was after I was in this role, and I
Okay.
was in this role 2016. So
Okay. 2017.
2017,
2018.
2018.
Maybe even 2017. 'Cause, yeah.
Were the scores significantly higher prior to the opt-out option? I don't recall us ever being really good. We've always had a lot of reasons why we felt that the testing was not a good indicator, and I don't recall the results being significantly better even with the even before the opt-out.
Well, and I mean, in a lot of states too, I mean, just because you have to sign a waiver, you're allowed to opt them out before you could refuse to participate.
Right,
There's
you
a
just didn't,
difference,
or you
but-
just didn't go to school or
Correct,
anything,
and
right,
there,
yeah.
and in some, again, it's,
Right.
it's the same idea, students not taking it, but just because it became law that you could opt them out, doesn't mean people all took the test. It was still, people refused to
But
participate.
the reasoning previously weighed heavily on the idea that they were not testing what we were teaching at any given time.
I think specifically for the science, that's always been the case. I think, Gina, can you put up the percent proficient
ELA.
numbers?
For which one?
Either the SAS or the SAT.
Well, that's later on.
Okay.
But here we go.
So I think when you look at, like Holly said, when you're comparing us to the state, we typically perform higher than the state average. If you tease that number out and speak to it in a vacuum, and you say that, can you put the high school one up?
No, unless you want science.
So
I think we
when
don't
you
want to
say that
Half the students are not proficient.
48% of our students are not proficient, that sounds horrible. But if you were to compare it to the state, again, we're higher than average because everybody's dealing with the same issues and the skewed data of all those zeros pulling your averages down. When you compare it to the state, yeah, and you're all playing the same, you're all taking the same test, playing the same game, fine. But if you were just to say in a vacuum that 48% of our students are performing below proficiency in the science test, that sounds terrible.
So the question is the benchmark of proficient a valid benchmark? Because if we truly are at, if 50% of our, half of our students are not proficient, then one would either say, well, they need to do it again, or we've given up on educating them. And I'm not saying what you're saying is wrong, Tim, but who establishes proficiency, and are we disputing the validity of that statement?
I think you can make that statement that we don't agree with what proficiency, we might not be in agreement with the state says proficiency is, and to the point earlier, that we don't teach in earth science class to our juniors who are the ones taking the test.
So what do we offer as an alternative to validate what we are doing?
So I think
Can I
that
just-
if we can just continue, I
Yeah.
think that's part of the question here.
I just want to say one thing. Even though this might be proficiency, with that 0 being part of the calculation, it's not that 52% of our students are proficient. Probably a lot more of them are proficient. They're just not taking the test. And then they're being calculated as a 0. So that's screwing these numbers up in essence. So, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Okay, so let me just get back to where I was. All right. So, watching our ELA performance over time. So on the left half, that's 7th grade. On the right half, that's 8th grade. So we're consistently well above the state average. Little ebbs and flows. You can watch, your 7th grade in 2023 becomes your 8th grade in 2024. So you can kind of watch how they, it looks like they dipped from 7th to 8th grade. So that's an important factor to watch. Whereas, 21 to 22, 74 to 76, so that demonstrates an improvement with that cohort. So cohort, I think, is a little bit more important necessarily than to look at any one piece of data. Looking at math, we can look at the same sort of trend. We're consistently well above the state average. Our 7th graders tend to do better than our 8th graders. But by the time you hit 8th grade, our opt-outs are much greater than in 7th grade.
But in this case, it wasn't that. But what I was trying to say earlier is, there's also a difference in the test, right?
Yep.
So some years is the test harder, because when you look at, we kind of follow the state a little bit.
Yeah.
So, the assessments change every year. It's a different, is it, or are they the same?
I think that they have some recycled questions. It's also adaptive.
Right.
So it changes with how the students are performing. Are the students across the board? Sometimes math questions are language heavy. Mm-hmm. So then overall, you're going to see a decrease in performance in the state. Mm-hmm. But I don't have access to all the questions, so I can't. And then, another thing that's important is comparing how we do to other districts. So for grade 7, on the left, the only districts that are higher than us are Oyster River and Windham for ELA. And then in grade 8, it's Bedford and Windham. So we're still very competitive across other districts. Looking at math relative to other districts, we're head-to-head with Bedford in grade 7, with Oyster River and Windham outperforming us in grade 7 last year. And then in grade 8, it's Oyster River and Windham outperforming us, with us pretty much head-to-head with Bedford. Okay, so then some other pieces of data. So this was administered in the fall of 2024. This is our PSAT 8-9. We give it to grade 8. So this is your class of 2029. Yeah.
Can I ask real quick, do we know what the opt-out levels are of those other schools, though, in terms of potentially skewing their data as well?
I don't have that information.
So it's still not necessarily completely accurate.
Correct. Yep.
Data.
Okay, so looking at how we're doing in reading and writing and math, we're doing well above the state average in both for our current 8th grade.
So our 8th graders take the 2 SASs and
They take
PSAT.
they take PSAT in the fall, and then they do New Hampshire SAS, ELA math, and the 8th graders take science, and that is usually in April or May.
It's a lot of testing.
It's a lot of testing, yep. And then watching our PSAT 8-9 performance over time. So over time, we've consistently been you know, and if you look right here, we start at 340, we go up to 460. Here we start at 0 and we go all the way up to 500. So it's not like we didn't do as well, or it's just, it looks a little skewed based on the scaling, but consistently doing much better than the state or the national average for PSAT.
And, you know, one of the things that we heard in the town meeting is that our scores are dropping. Like, we are downward spiraling. I saw that on Facebook the other day. I'm not seeing that. I definitely see instances where we've dropped down one year, we bounce back up
Yep.
another year. That is cohort, that's the test, but I'm not trying to make excuses, but I was expecting, we were hearing this downward spiral, and I'm not
Yep.
seeing a downward spiral. I'm seeing, sure, I like the fact that you're probably looking at trends and looking at, like you said, like, when you see the 7th grade to 8th grade scores not like a dip, then that's when you start to say, okay, what's going on and how can we change and what can we fix, right?
Yep. So another interesting thing to look at is, so math 2023 is a little bit higher than math 2024. The current 9th grade class, as you can see, we have in Principal Gerzone's report, the math team, one of our freshmen was recognized as a top performing mathematician in the state. It's a strong math cohort. The current 8th grade is a little bit stronger in ELA, and that's what you get. If you recall, our current junior class, when they were in 4th graders, the Brookline cohort was the highest performance in math across the whole state in that particular cohort, and in the Hollis cohort, that was a lower than normal performance in math for that particular town. So it was just particularly interesting, that group, because we had the highest and then like slightly lower than normal, and then you put them together and then we're about average when you put them together, and they're still above average, but it all kind of equals out. But it is important to pay attention to the actual cohort and knowing what are we seeing in class. Do these actually reflect what we know that they can do? So our juniors took the PSAT this fall. Once again, they did really well, much better than the national average. This is our current junior class.
So our juniors take the PSATs in the fall.
Mhm.
They take the SATs, the school-wide SAT in the spring. Some take AP tests, and then some take additional SAT score tests.
And some also do 95% should take New Hampshire SAS science test.
Right, and then
Yeah.
and that might be another reason why they don't show up for the New Hampshire SAS science test.
Yeah, anecdotally,
There's a
the
lot of
students that you're
testing.
talking about who are taking those AP classes, who have those exams, will likely prioritize and not take our New Hampshire SAS test
Right.
and opt out. Some of our best and brightest might not be taking that test.
Right, or even
Right.
and they might just not be paying attention if they do. They might just take it,
Yeah.
just get through it.
Yeah. But that, if you're in a class, if you're a junior and you're in a class with seniors, and it's an AP class, that class is still running while you're supposed to be doing SAS testing. So if you take the test, then you miss out on, maybe it's just a review session, but it's a review session with a teacher that you don't have access to. So there are lots of reasons, very good reasons, why you would choose not to take the test. And then here we have our class 2025 school day administration of SAT. So this was administered in the spring of 2024. Once again, our students performed well above both New Hampshire and the national average for school day administration of the SAT. And our opt-outs for this test are nowhere near what we see for SAS testing.
Do they count as zeros too?
Understandably so.
No.
They don't count as zeros.
No.
So this is the average of the. So my other question to you is, we take a school day administered SAT. I saw this. I'm just asking questions as
Yeah.
we go along. But so we're being compared to the national average, but there are not a lot of other national places that have school day administered. So is that the national average of the SAT, or is that the school day average?
For New Hampshire, it's the school day administration.
Right.
There are others that
States.
there are other states that use it on a school day, but I don't know if that average is specific to the
School day
actual.
administration.
Yeah,
I think you can break the data apart a couple different ways on College Board.
I know that when I go in to look up data, I have to look at the October date, the November date,
Right,
the December
right.
date, the school
No,
day
I'm
date.
just because the motivation of students who who sign up to take the test, and those kids, that cohort of kids taking the test across the country, those scores are going to be different than a school day
Yep.
where it's your state test and everyone has to take it. So that's just, so we're doing really well, basically,
Yeah.
is what I was thinking.
In total, there are 14 states
Oh, okay.
contracted
never
with
mind
College
then.
Board to
Maybe
administer
that's
the
what it is,
SAT.
then maybe it is the school day average of those 14 states.
Although most of those national outside of New Hampshire don't even have to do the essay anymore. New Hampshire still requires the essay.
Oh, I didn't know.
And we saw this from, oh my gosh, I just blanked on the name of it, that we send out, our school report.
School profile.
School profile, thank you. We saw this with school profile. This particular year, in 2024, 94% of our students got 3 or higher on an AP test, which is amazing. But overall, we do really well. And those are tests that students and the community value. But I thought it would be interesting to break down AP Math and AP Science performance specifically, since comments were made specifically about our science performance and our math performance going down over time. So if you look at AP Calculus first, it's the one on the left.
That's amazing.
Our students scored an average of 4.73. That's unheard of.
That's an average of
That's
our
the average of our students.
That's insane.
New Hampshire average was 3.56, and our national average is 3.22. AP Stats, our students on average got a 3.75 compared to 2.9, 2.96. AP Biology, 3.67 was our student average compared to, I'll just go national, 3.15. AP Chemistry, our students averaged 3.83 compared to 3.31 nationally. AP Physics 1, our students averaged 3.35 compared to 2.59 nationally. AP Physics 2, our students averaged 3.71 compared to 3.2 nationwide. And then AP Environmental, our students performed at 3.77 compared to 2.8 nationally. So these are specifically those same areas that we were identified as being highly deficient.
And again, these are also classes that students choose to take, and
Yeah.
some don't take
Correct.
the AP exam, but it doesn't count against us.
Right, and so some of these are for seniors, some of them are open to other grades, but if you're a senior and you know where you're going to go to college and you know they're not going to accept the exam,
Why take
maybe
it?
you're not going to take the test.
Right.
But,
So Holly, to your point, that's one of the things that should be shared at the annual
Yeah.
meeting with our 5 minutes
Right.
of
Yeah, I mean, we have to
Flash
share
that.
some of this, especially to show, these are our really strong, bright students, and they're being taught and instructed in a way that they can achieve those kinds of levels at this test. So, on these tests, so that shows that we have instructors, we're doing the instruction. And so, yeah, I definitely think that needs to be shown. I especially think also this idea, and I'm saying this because I think people in the public are watching it. I'm saying this because this idea that our test scores are downward spiraling. Not all of them are, and none of them are. None of them are downward spiraling. None of them, there's no huge trend, but obviously we're successful.
And it takes a very nuanced eye to pull the right message out of the other graphs that we saw.
Right.
And understand that you opt out, it's the virtual student is still in the seat
Right,
and getting
right,
a 0.
right,
Right?
Right.
I
And
mean,
the-
that's
That's not
really
understood.
important
When
for people
anyone
to
from the community
understand.
looks at that,
Yes.
unless they have
Right.
a education background and specifically on that style of testing, that's lost.
But I think that even those who do have an educational background, unless you're involved in testing, as a teacher, you may not know that
Right.
that's how it all breaks down.
Right. And it's easy to take away that we're spiraling out of control into the, abyss.
And the other really important point is this is just one format for assessment.
Yeah.
Standardized testing is just one way to assess students. And some students are good at standardized testing, some students are not but that doesn't mean that a student who's not great at a standardized test isn't learning and growing and getting the education they need. So that's a whole other part of this, is that testing is just one measure.
Can I just add something to this
Yeah.
conversation, specifically about the APs? One of the things that I've seen over the years, we do a tremendous job with our high-end students. I think one of the things that our current board has done a really nice job is ensuring access to these high-end classes. So I've seen an improved access for students to take the AP classes. As we know, when students are pushed, they're stretched, they may be able to accomplish things that they wouldn't have been otherwise. So we have increased our offerings and we have increased access. So these statistics, while comparatively speaking, we continue to perform higher. We're also opening more doors for more students to access these AP classes. And I think this ties into everything we do with the program of studies and the prerequisites and all that's tied into these courses. So anecdotally, we have more kids taking AP classes, we have more kids testing, and we still continue to perform higher.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. And then just for anyone out there, a 3 or above at most state schools is going to get you some credit. It's going to get you some credit, and that can make a big difference in how your kid can double major or do this or do that, and in some cases, kids graduate early from good schools.
I would venture to say that somebody going into college with a 4.73 on the AP Calc is about a year and a half into college math.
Yep. Yeah. So those are good numbers.
All right, and so then the question is, how does data inform our decision? So we're trying to be knowledgeable, compassionate with every student. That's what PLC time is. That's what we do with some of our early release time. Our state level assessment is just one piece of the data, of the pie. We have our common assessments that are, like every Algebra 1 student is going to take this common assessment, and that's what our teachers discuss in PLC. What's working for you? What's working for me? How do I help this particular cohort of students or one student? SIT teams examine data and group students based on need. But the real question, to go back to what Tom was saying, is what do we actually value? What's important to us as a community? Because how do you measure success? How do you measure failure? And it's really, open to discussion. What is so important to us? What metrics matter? And I think that the ones in our community that seem to matter, this is something that our community values. Maybe not all students, and that's fine, but certainly those that buy into it, care, and want to do well. I think all of our students will buy into an SAT. I don't see them buying into that one assessment where we hear a lot of discussion about. We're not hiding the data. It's just, I don't know that that's an accurate representation of what we're doing in the classroom and what our students can do.
And you definitely aren't hiding the data. That's the other thing. When people in the public get up and talk about it, it's in the district report.
Which I printed.
All of these charts are in the district report. That is posted before the annual meeting. So we're not hiding any of this.
Right.
We're not hiding the data. However, we are not proactively publicizing what we think is important and our results in that area. And I think that's something that we can do better.
Right, and that's what we talked about a little earlier, is maybe having a quick presentation at the annual meeting to at least let people know. But also, we do need to keep publicizing.
But I think that if these are the things that we think are representative, good or bad, representative of what we value, I think they should be front and center on the website. There should be I don't want to call it PR because that's got such a bad connotation, but pushing that out, not just in time for the meeting. I think for a message to be effective, it has to be repeated.
I think it's a really good point.
So I'm glad that I have both Rob and Tom here to make this special announcement. Over the summer, we're putting out a data dashboard. I know you guys have been talking about it for years, but it's coming to fruition, and we'll be adding to it. But the question is, what belongs there? What do we want to showcase? And that's, a conversation over time. But the framework is there, and it's coming your way.
Also, I think I noticed that that people can Is it active now that they can subscribe to get our minutes and agendas? Or
I haven't
agendas?
tested it. So we've adjusted obviously our agenda system from Board Docs. It's an upgrade to Diligent, which does a lot of the great things like allows you to press Board Packet and you can open it up as one for those of you who like to print. There are a lot of different features. Another feature is to subscribe to it. So every time we post an agenda, make it public, people who have subscribed can get a notification. It's taking the company a little bit to kind of make us fully live, which is why we haven't done our big reveal, if you will. So that's coming, and it looks like you can click on the button, but I don't know if it actually follows through. So more to come.
Is there still a sign-in for us? I was trying to figure that out.
So there is a sign-in to Diligent if we had content available for you ahead of time. If there was content that was maybe available for non-public discussion but not for public consumption, but typically we don't put it there anyway. But.
I just have one last question about what Gina just went over. The common assessments you talked about, like that were given, those are given throughout the course.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And that's my one point, because when you're asking what's valuable, I know and I agree that this community values the AP scores and things like that. But to me, as a parent and as a taxpayer, I think that there's got to be a way to communicate a little bit more about the common assessments, because to me, like I said, I could list like 50 reasons why I opt my kids out of things like the SAS test. But one of them too, for the science being a good example, is once they take that, say my kid gets one that isn't as relevant because they haven't had that, they don't score well on it. What do we do now? How do we help my kid? And there's nothing is the answer, honestly. So we spend all this time on a one-time high-stakes test that doesn't really help my kid, doesn't really give us great data, but I think the common assessments do. And so that's why I rely in terms of, how are we doing? How is my child doing? How are we doing overall? Those common assessments are really important to kind of convey that. So it's not like we're just looking at, like you said, it's not just looking at the SAS, but that's to me something that's super valuable. That's not just, it's not so easy to communicate like we do on the other stuff.
Agreed.
Great. Is there anything else that people would like to see from a data perspective in the future? Because it sounds like if we have some notes on that, maybe we'll try to do something like this again in a couple of months when we have a new assistant superintendent, and maybe there's something else. Okay?
Well, what is it, Gina, that you as assistant superintendent of curriculum look at most frequently to determine how our students are doing, how effective you feel a specific teacher or program might be performing? What are the indicators? Are you looking at grades? Are you looking at standardized assessments? Are you?
So I think it depends. It's a very different approach when you go K to 12. It varies over time. I think standardized tests are a component, but I don't look at the overall average. I look at individual standards, and then I look at where are we hitting those in, if I'm looking at grade 5, where are we hitting those in grade 5? How is our curriculum meeting or not meeting that standard? And is that consistent over time? Fractions are always a hurdle. So could we look at fractions in a different way? We've implemented, elementary-wise, we've implemented a new math K-3, a new ELA 4 through 6, and the next year ELA K to 6. We're going to be looking at shifting the report cards for next year. What I want to look at for 7 through 12 for my focus is having the assistant superintendent really spend a lot of time on the grading and assessment committee to look at looking at rubrics of common assessments across grade levels to really address the concerns about how different it is in humanities classes, whether it's English 9 from one teacher to another. There should be more similarities, more commonalities, and more, we should have rubrics that are aligned with the standards and with what we're teaching. And so that's what I'm going to sort of ask that the work be shifted to.
Do you look at a lot at averages, or do you look at the spread and the?
I look at the spread.
Because that to me is a real big deal, especially when we're talking about above or below proficiency. Doesn't tell you whether you've got a cluster here and a cluster there, or if you've got a distribution. So in answer to one of the things that you asked, Holly, is what would we like to see? I would like to have a window into what our administration is using, rather than occasionally getting a report. It would be nice to be able to look over their shoulder, not to critique it, but just to get a glimpse of the dynamics and what we're dealing with.
Yeah, I will say it is harder co-op, especially as you get into high school because there's so many individualized courses, whereas, all 7th graders take the same English class, so for the most part, so that's just easier to look at. It gets a little bit more complex, but I think what's going to be important is looking at the spread. When you have a student performing at the top, for the most part, they're going to perform at the top regardless of who's in front of them. They just have that talent. And so what I want to look at is growth. Where are those middle students? How do we move them up? Those kids that are just below proficiency, like I want to get them up.
See, I'm really concerned about this concept of proficiency because it seems to be it's like when you've got a teacher that says I want everyone to be at 100%, and then you've got another teacher who's grading on a curve. They have different ideas of what's acceptable. There's a raw score and there's an interpretation.
Right.
What does proficiency mean?
That's a good point.
Okay, all right, we have to move on. I'm losing my
Quorum.
I'm gonna lose my quorum. I have 2 members that need to scoot. So, we can email you some more suggestions if you
Yep.
want to. Facilities update?
I just want to say we're moving. The solar is just a little bit slower, but we have quotes for the roof, so that's going to get moving. We're focusing solar on the high school because the high school roof is pretty much all redone. We have looked at really focusing on the boiler here, the boiler plant, if you will, and the propane switchover. That's been the primary focus, but the location of where the propane tank is going to go needs to be adjusted based on our lot line, because it accidentally it was to be put on another person's property. So anyway, that just goes to the Tom Enright's suggestion in one of our facilities committee that we really need to just figure out exactly where the lines are of the co-op property, so we are very clear.
Are we going to have it surveyed?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the timetable for when decisions are going to have to be made about the rooftop air handling and things like that?
I think those will be a little bit secondary to creating the
I
boiler
understand.
plant. Yeah.
The reason I ask is that because now that we've voted solar in,
We just have to vote.
we want to look at that discussion about whether to make it
Yeah, let me
more
do that
electric or
Sure.
propane driven for the rooftop stuff, the heating coils in there. And I'm just wondering, is that even going to be in this year?
That I don't know, but I believe we're having a facilities committee next month.
Yeah, we're planning to meet in May.
Yeah.
Should we appoint you then?
Might be a good
Okay,
idea.
so I need a motion to appoint Rob and Tom to the
Somebody else
facilities
wanna
committee.
be?
Does anybody else want to do it? Okay, nobody's jumping up.
Are you sure?
Rob and Tom
Boilers?
to be,
Come on,
So moved.
boilers.
so moved by Beth, second by Amy. All those in favor of Rob and Tom on facilities?
Rob, we
Okay.
should vote against it.
Great. Okay, I would like to move I'm gonna move the deliberations. I need a motion that the board by roll call state agreement to adhere to policy BCA, Board Member Code of Ethics.
So moved.
Moved by Beth. Second by Kate. We need to do this by roll call, so I'm doing this out of order, but
Tom, aye.
Tom, aye.
Cindy, aye. Amy, aye.
Rob, aye.
Holly, aye.
Kate, aye.
Beth, aye.
Great. I need another one, is a motion to approve the 2025-2026 school calendar as presented, knowing that we don't know the graduation.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Rob, second by Beth. All those in favor? Any comments?
Just super quick, just communicate as much as we can those half days. I love that they're all on Wednesdays except the ones on a Monday, and that was the only thing I've heard a lot of feedback this year, so just communicate them the best we can.
All those in favor? 7-0. Okay, I need a motion to authorize the board chairman to represent the school board and acknowledge that the superintendent has consulted with all members of the school board in furtherance of the school board's obligations, including those enumerated in RSA 189(1)A, and pursuant to the school board's oversight of federal funds the district will be receiving, and of the general assurances, requirements, definitions for participation in said federal funds.
So
Programs. Moved by Beth, second by
Sure.
Kate. Any discussion?
I think it's a mistake.
I know, you don't think we should sign, but, okay. All those in favor? All those opposed? 6-1. Okay.
We skipped over teacher nominations.
I know,
Okay.
I didn't know that, actually. Can you help me? Where's that one? Oh, I need a motion to accept the superintendent's recommendations for teacher nominations as presented.
So moved.
Moved by Beth.
Second.
Second by Rob. Any more comments on that one? All those in favor? 7-0. And then, wait, did I get them? No, I have one more.
DFA.
DFA.
Okay, I need,
It's not roll call.
sorry, I need a motion to adopt policy DFA investments.
So moved.
Moved by Beth.
Second.
Second by Kate. All those in favor? 7-0. Oh, we didn't have a process observer. I need a motion to observe.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. By Rob. All those in favor? Who was the second? Rob was the first.
I thought Beth was.
second. All those in favor?
Everyone's second.
7-0. Okay.
Take your pick.
Thank you very much for your